Gentlemen of the Bigs, it is Monday, August the 12th, 2019. Week 18 has finally concluded. What an amazing week this week. What just unbelievable matchups top to bottom. Some really interesting matchups. A spoiler in the cards, and I am incredibly excited to get into this. With me once again this week, my co-host Benjamin Aloysius Nisman. How are you, sir?
I'm doing well, Joe. Good to be back. The final 4 weeks are upon us. It's going to be grueling. It's going to be treacherous, and everyone's going for it till the bitter end. We got basically 9 teams now. Any one of them could take first place basically at this point, but you gotta love what you're seeing again at the energy. We got one spoiler, like you said. I get ousted from first place. A lot of crazy things happen, and I'm excited to get into it as well. Take it away, buddy. You know what to say.
Yeah, let's jump into your matchup. Starting off, you came in as the first place team, taking on Witness Protection Jason Ashby, and Jason comes away with a big win here, 11-9. Close categories this week. You won by a save. Jason wins by a triple, a homer, and 4 ticks on the on-base percentage. You guys tied in wins. For Jason, who won the week, he went 12 for 41 on his bench. That's a .293 batting average. He left 5 runs, 2 doubles, 2 homers, 4 RBIs, 4 walks, 7 strikeouts, and an error on his bench. The big thing he left is the 5 runs. That definitely would have flipped the category. But you know, he kind of needed to be almost perfect as he lost that by 3. Wednesday, Yuli Gurriel went 1 for 4 with a homer on the bench, and Ryan McMahon was 0 for 4 with 2 strikeouts in utility spot. That was right before Gurriel got hurt. Kind of a big loss for him. I know Gurriel was a big kind of utility knife for him. He would drop him in every spot he could. But that day, his entire team also hit 171. At the end of the day, that didn't matter as much. As far as his big moves, he made a lot of really savvy moves I saw here. You know, he picked up Marwin Gonzalez, who went 1 for 4 with an RBI on Thursday. Turned around and picked up Brandon Drury on Friday, who went 1 for 4 with a double. And on Saturday, dropped Drury for Dickerson, who went 1 for 4 with a homer, an RBI, and 2 strikeouts. You know, it was a good, solid week for Jason, and you know he comes out of here with an 11-9 win. You know, this was a really, really big matchup. You know, I had said last week that I felt like Jason was the odd team out. This win certainly cements his statement of "I'm here for real." You know, it's the first of his hellish schedule he's got coming up. You know, he's got Bobby this week and me next week and Ari in week 23. So to get a win in his first week here, you know, cementing himself in the 4 spot, really does a lot of work going forward for him. That being said, for your team, Benji, you went 15 for 55. That's a .273 batting average. 5 runs, 5 doubles, 5 RBIs, 4 walks, 10 strikeouts, and an error. And you know, we were saying this off air that your team didn't hit and you left stats on the bench literally every single day. You know, whether it was Wednesday, your team hitting 116 with Kipnis going 2 for 4 with 2 doubles and an RBI on the bench. Whether it was, you know, Thursday, your entire team hitting 138. Miguel Cabrera going 3 for 5 on Tuesday, and Votto 0 for 4. You know, it just seems like we talked a lot about things coming back to the mean and the law of the averages, and I think this was one of those weeks where your team's been doing fantastic and you've made amazing moves, that maybe this was just a down week for you. Give me your thoughts on
in general.
Yeah.
In general, Joe, I felt like I couldn't really get one right, and it got to the point where on Friday, Saturday, and Sunday I was just, you know, it doesn't matter at this point. I feel pretty comfortable in a playoff spot. Let me just throw anyone out there and see who's getting hits, you know. So on Sunday, my decisions were made for me. There were a lot of guys with days off. We'll get into how that kind of changed the week as well. But as far as Saturday goes, I was like, I'll leave Cabrera, I'll leave Newman, I'll leave Renato on the bench, and see how that goes. In the end, Upton gets me a home run.
Yeah.
You know, it's the most frustrating thing that happened, Joe, is that I kind of got too cute on one particular day. I believe it was either Thursday or Wednesday, where both Buster Posey and Stephen Vogt were playing, and they had Vogt in the outfield, and he was a left-hander going against a right-hander, and Posey was up against a right-hander playing catcher. And I guess I thought, you know, maybe this is the day that Posey is supposed to be on the bench. And Posey has been a really inconsistent player, man. He's batting something like 258. And it's been very frustrating because he plays one day, he doesn't play another day. Maybe I need to feed that catcher spot just to get maybe a run, a double, whatever it may be, even a hit from somebody else. And I got to use a move because of it on a particular day. But, you know, when I end up not playing him, when he ends up doing something.
Mm-hmm.
So at the end, I look at on-base percentage, and I think, my God, I realize that maybe I would have made different moves going forward, but even just like that simple thing of play your everyday catcher, play the guy that your team was named after for so long, like, and I just can't even do that. Jason Kipnis, he's on the bench for a doubleheader in the first game. So I'm thinking, you know, he's probably playing the second game, but what if he's just getting a full day off? So maybe I should just sit him the whole way. He gets 2 doubles on my bench. I realized I lost by 2 doubles. When you say it was a tough week all around, you said it.
Mm-hmm.
As far as how the team performed that I played and the way how I personally played my players. The decisions to start certain pitchers, there was a real go-for-it mentality way too early in the week. Too early in the week. And I was talking to a Yankee fan on Monday when I was at work, and I was really contemplating, like, how do you feel about Tanaka? Like, this is a big Yankee fan. He's like,
right.
I really like him. I'm like, yeah, even in Camden Yards, like, yeah, I really like him. Like, I like him for the start. And I'm like, I see what you're saying. So I started this guy, man, and he was great for, like, the first 4 innings. And then it just sort of, you know, unraveled, and it was just very frustrating to watch this player who was extremely inconsistent when I like really need him.
Mm-hmm.
You know, I realized he did have that good start for me on Sunday, so I can't get on him too much. But the ERA from Tanaka has been atrocious. Gibson, he's basically, and I started happening. He was really inconsistent this week, and has been kind of in general. And yeah, just tough week all around. We talked off air about how I could seem to be this close and still grab 9 stats, even though I batted so atrociously that my ERA is so horrendous. Like, how does this happen, Joe?
Yeah, I mean, it's a whole lot of counting stats, Benji, and we talked about, you know, the guys that hit toward the top of your lineups, you know, did what they need to do for you. They got walks, they stole bases, they scored runs, you know. Pitching wise, you had a very, and I said this off air, you had a very Joe Schubert week. You won innings, you got saves, you got your relief appearances. That's a very Ben Nisman week, and you got strikeouts. And you know what? Those 4, coupled with the top of your lineup guys hitting and doing what they're supposed to, keeps this a very close matchup. You know, one decision here or there. If you could get a triple, you know, then it becomes a 10-9 game. You know, a different outcome in a win gets you another category. You know, there's a lot of things that could have gone one way or the other. At the end of the day, I think you'll take this loss as well, even considering the fact that you've now lost 2 in a row. But you've lost those 2 in a row by like what? A combined 3 stats. Like, I think you'll take that. I think you'll take that every time out. You know, it's the first time that you've lost 2 in a row since the first 2 weeks of the season when you lost to me and Bobby. You know, and those were a completely different story. You lost by 11 to me, and you lost by 4 to Bobby. So a combined 15 you lose the first 2 weeks. I think you'll take a combined three stats loss here.
Yeah, I will. And I feel like a playoff spot at this point is all but secure just because of the teams that are playing each other and my schedule ahead. It's not like I have to face anybody that, besides Mike Sherman, but he's at this point still far enough behind me that I feel like I'm still, no matter where he and I play, he can't jump me.
Yeah, I don't think he's the danger. I think though, coming down the stretch here, you know, you've got Ari this week, you've got Mike Sherman next week. I think those two, you know, if you take two lopsided losses, you're in trouble. But I just don't see your team doing that.
Right. Again, even if I do take two double ups in a row, there are still teams that are playing each other now that one could do the other to the same. So
sure.
Let's say, and I think it's what's the premier matchup this week? It's Bobby and Jason, right? So if one of them,
no, we have Bobby and Mike Sherman. It's Bobby and Mike Sherman. We've also got it's James McCloskey and Mike Sherman is the premier. It's James McCloskey and Mike Sherman this week in Week 19.
Yes,
that is the premier matchup.
Right, that's the one.
Yeah, and Bobby and Jason. Yeah, you hit it.
Right. So I mean, no matter what happens now after this week, one of those guys is going to be a little bit lower. So I feel so comfortably in this playoff spot, and I generally, for me, like, I never say it, like, but at least I think I can take about 7 or 8 a week over the next 4 weeks, and on average, that should get me in there, man. Because what did we say off the air? You need about
225.
218, something.
225. 225 is the number to shoot for, and 25 over.
I thought we decided that was too much after we realized it's 22 weeks.
Well, yeah, okay, so fair warning. I've been doing math all season with 9.8 as the number per week that you need to win. It's actually not, because I did it over 23 weeks. It's only 22 weeks. But that number is still accurate. That 225 is still accurate. The weekly total is actually 10.2. So to get to 225 for you, Benny, you're at 200 now. You know, you need to win, you said it, 6 or 7 every week, and you'll get there without a problem.
Yeah.
You know. So, you know, the rest of us back here, we've got some work to do, but I would feel confident like you are currently in your playoff spot. You know, especially if you get through Sherman and Ari the next 2 weeks, then you get Uncle Barry and Andy to finish out the season. Those aren't cupcakes, but they're teams that match up well. Like, you match up well against those two teams.
I think so too. Again, 500 over the next 2 weeks.
Yeah,
that's getting through to me.
Absolutely,
that's getting through.
Absolutely. You know, Jason gives himself a great positioning here as well, puts himself in 4th place, 12 back of the lead, and only 7 back of the second place bye week spot, and gets himself 3.5 clear of 6th, and 5 total of 7th. You know, he's got a few teams in there right behind him, but, you know, his schedule as well, we've talked about it. It's not great. It's not great to look at. He's got Bobby this week, me next week, James Santangelo, and Ari to finish the season. It's not a schedule I would want to have, but in the position he's in with this win starting off, and let's not forget, the guy's won 4 straight. He's won 6 of the last 7. You know, he's a strong team here. He's doing very well this season. I could definitely see, you know, a situation. I could see a path for him to get there. Law of averages could come back and haunt him, but I don't see this team being that type that will fall off that hard. You know, he's stacked
especially with the way he's been pitching. I really think it's been a solid pitching through this streak that he's had.
Mm-hmm.
So for me, you nailed it on the head, man, when you said this is the first leg of this little gauntlet that he has to go through. with Bobby next, and then you.
Mm-hmm.
And I think all he's got to do is go 500 there.
Yeah.
And then it's James Santangelo at one point.
Mm-hmm.
James is due for a win against one of you guys. I don't know which one it's going to be, but I think there's a chance that he could have one of those big offensive weeks against somebody. Maybe it's you this week. Maybe it's Jason. But I see that happening to somebody this year.
Oh, sure.
But as far as Jason goes, he's been cruising with the pitching.
Mm-hmm.
Pesky hitting team is Whit Merrifield. We'll touch on
him.
The key players, but
yep.
He was tough to beat, and I tried to do what I could as far as picking up starters, going for the strikeouts.
Mm-hmm.
But in the end of the day, he put such a lead. He had so many moves to burn. He was in control the entire time, and it's tough. I had so many opportunities, Joe, to win on base percentage.
Mm-hmm.
It could have been a tie, but in my opinion, if I almost tie or I don't win, I don't even feel like I deserve it, Joe. This guy was the better manager. This guy was the better team. He's rolling right now, and he might be going for his first playoff spot ever.
Mm-hmm.
Manager since 2004, before we even called it the Bigs.
Mm-hmm.
This is a really, really exciting thing right now for this particular team.
Yeah, no, I completely agree, and I can't wait. I really hope this team does make the playoffs. 15 years without a playoff appearance. Let's make this happen this year, Jason. Good luck to you, buddy. Let's jump to key players this week. And for Jason, who won the week, you hit it on the head with Whit Merrifield. This guy kind of carried the team this week. 433 average, 485 on base. He got 7 runs, 3 doubles, 2 homers, 7 RBIs, 3 walks, 4 strikeouts. He did get 2 errors, though, but I believe he did lose the errors category. So maybe he cost him there. But at the end of the day, what would this team be this week without him and his 7 RBIs and the 2 homers? Those 2 categories were insanely close. And, for Whit Merrifield, you're not expecting that kind of power and run-producing production out of this guy. He's got 62 RBIs on the season. It's not, overwhelming. You expect this guy to steal a couple of bases, and he didn't this week. And yet, and that's kind of the one thing that stands out with this team, Whit Merrifield, Victor Robles, Jorge Polanco. You've got a bunch of guys on this team that can steal bags. Nick Senzel's another one, and he got doubled up in the steals category 7-3. So, credit to your team for that. But like you said, otherwise it just wasn't a great offensive week for you. We'll move on to Anthony Rendon. I say it every week. I will continue to say it. Most underrated player in baseball. 391 batting average, 423 on base percentage, 6 runs, the triple, a homer, 5 RBIs, a steal, a walk, and 4 strikeouts. The triple wins him that category. It's the only one of the week. The homer and the 5 RBIs certainly propels him to the win. And the batting average just continues to play. He had an unbelievable series against the Mets, following up a good series against San Francisco this week. Guy's hitting 320 this year with 90 RBIs and 25 bombs. He's just a really, really good player. And I remember in the draft thinking I wanted to get him, and Jason sniped him from me. So I had to go in a different direction. But I remember going, that's going to be a guy who's going to be an MVP style candidate. Unfortunately, he plays in the NL where we've already got 3 of them ahead of him. But he's had a really, really great season and has helped carry Jason as far as he has. Finally, we'll jump to Marwin Gonzalez, who hit 455 with a similar on-base percentage. A run, a double, a homer, 3 RBIs. He picked him up late in the week. He picked him up on Thursday. But to get that kind of production late in the week, just to continue to put the pressure on you with batting average and the on-base percentage, and to get the homer and 3 RBIs. He won by a homer, he won by 4 RBIs. So that's a huge addition there late in the week. Pitching
well said. I think that's probably the pickup of the week, if anything, when you talk about the fact that he won on-base percentage and home runs because of that pickup.
Absolutely. Pitching-wise for Jason, we're going to hit on this guy later on. I think you've got quite a story to tell here. But Ryan Yarbrough had a great start on Sunday, and following up a relief appearance of performance on the 6th. All told, he goes 13 1/3 with a win, gives up 1 homer, 1 walk, 13 strikeouts, an .068 ERA, and an .060 WHIP with 1 relief appearance. The relief appearance at the end of the day doesn't matter. He lost that by 6. But, the innings, the win, and the strikeouts, along with that ERA, kept, like you said, kept the pressure on you, kept his ERA and WHIP low. He pitched to an .091 WHIP over 60 innings. It's an incredible number to throw to. And, tying wins at 5 is a huge deal. Ryan Yarbrough certainly was the catalyst to a great week for Jason on the pitching side. Jose Quintana matched him, 7 innings, a win, 7 strikeouts, a 1.29 ERA, and an .029 WHIP. And finally, I'm going to hit Hector Neris, the closer he traded for. 2 relief appearances, 2 innings, all clean, 3 strikeouts, and the save. This matchup was very close in saves coming down to the final week, which is back-to-back weeks where you've really had to grind out saves, Benny. For a team that kind of built this huge bullpen, it's kind of showing cracks and crumbles at the base here, and you escaped this matchup with a 4-3 win in saves, but you tied me last week, and somebody could come along and get you there, and that could be something going into the playoffs that you really need to keep an eye on.
Yes, I agree. It's not anything I feel like I can really control right now. Like, maybe there are still some guys out there in free agency that can grab you one here and there, but me, I'm going to be streaming relievers, so I might just get one by coincidence. But like you said, that is kind of how I built my team as far as the pitching side of it. Now, a lot of it's luck. It's just what teams are doing that day. If they're in that situation where they're up by 3 runs or less, that's how it's going to come down to. Because 2 weeks ago, I think I had 7 saves, something like that.
Yeah.
So it really is just kind of one way or the other. I feel like because I still have 3 bona fide closers, there's a good chance most of the time I'm going to get at least 3 to 4 each week. That may be enough to win or tie me the category, and that's what I gotta just hope for. I realize that there's not a ton that I can do about it right now. The trade deadline's over. I moved Iglesias thinking I had the room to move another closer. Cincinnati also, you never know. This is not like a big-time winning team right now, so it's a tough situation to be in because of the reason for me drafting as many closers as I did, but I also drafted all those closers, Joe, figuring something like this can happen.
Sure.
Guys lose their jobs. Guys get hurt. It just happens. Relievers in 2019 is a damn crapshoot. That's just really the way it is. We can look at Edwin Diaz. We can look at Melanson, who was a stud a few years ago.
Look at Blake Trinan this year.
Pretty well this year. There's a ton of freaking relievers that we can look at and say these guys are awesome, and this year they stink, or vice versa. Last year they stunk, and this year they're awesome. But at this point, man, I just gotta hope for the best. I have 2 of the most bona fide closers in the entire major leagues, so just gotta hope for the best and hope the rest of what I built my team around, which is walks and on base percentage, that kicks into gear, and we're on a roll, and hopefully I catch fire at the right time.
Sure. For your offense this week, there's not a whole lot to write home about, Benny, but I am going to highlight Trey Turner here. 7 runs, and you won that category. A homer, an RBI, 3 steals, you won that category. 5 walks, 6 strikeouts, an error. He hit .304 with a .429 batting average. What would this team be this week without him? as well as Ender Inciarte. 300 average, 563 on base, 4 runs, a homer, 3 RBIs, a steal, 5 walks, and a strikeout. And finally, Carlos Santana again this week, 292 average, 433 on base, 6 runs, a double, a homer, 7 RBIs, 6 walks, and 4 strikeouts. Your team hit 216 for the week, a 314 on base percentage. But those 3 guys carried the load where, guys like Joey Votto and Nomar Mazara and Stephen Vogt and, Miguel Cabrera and Domingo Santana and Buster Posey all really came up short. I think this is one of those perfect storms of the vast majority of your guys just did not hit this week, with 3 small exceptions. And it shows in the stats. It shows that, you lost on base percentage by 4 ticks. I would love to know, if you have it in front of you, what your record is in on base percentage this year.
I do.
Okay.
Here it is. I got the.
You're 10-8 this season. Yeah.
10-8.
Okay.
But it was very close to being 11-7.
Right.
11-8.
Yeah. Yeah.
So, I realize that's kind of. It's not. I'm still over 500.
Sure.
You know what I mean? And the other thing I built around was trying to avoid strikeouts, which I managed to basically do pretty well.
Yeah, and you won both of those categories this week. You beat Jason in steals, which is one of those key things you need to do in order to beat him. We talked about it off air with Whit Merrifield. I think we talked about it to start off the week. Whit Merrifield, Jorge Polanco, Victor Robles, Nick Senzel. There's a ton of guys on this team that'll steal bases, and for you to double that up was pretty huge.
Yeah, I didn't really expect to win that category going into this week based on that. It was kind of one that I was not even managing around, really. I mean, I even managed for defense more so than going for fast guys. I saw myself getting a lead kind of early, and I kind of just hung on to it. Trey Turner did what he was supposed to do. I was surprised to see it. I'm over 500 in the stolen base category. Not really a thing I drafted for. Just kind of funny thing that I noticed based on, like, sometimes you turn something just that you don't really expect going into it with your team, how it's built, but somehow you manage to have good matchups against certain guys that also aren't stealing bases that same week.
Sure. For Jason, again, a solid pitching week for him. I think he would have liked to catch another win and get that category, but he put the pressure on you, and you had to go for it. You had to sort of sacrifice homers and walks, ERA, and WHIP. All 4 of those categories are sort of off the table, along with losses that you kind of had to kind of punt in order to get the innings and the strikeouts. And the strikeouts, man, that was still a pretty close category with only 5.
Amazingly, and I needed every damn pitcher on Sunday. I needed to drop some key players that I really wanted to hold on to going into next week and see how it was going. But I felt like at that point, losses, I realized they were still close enough, but just not close enough for my taste. I was willing to lose it. Like you said, I was absolutely willing to punt it. But I just got to tip my cap to a guy that's been pitching really well all season. I mean, he's 12-6 in innings pitched. I managed to grab one, off of him. He's 12-6 in strikeouts. I managed to grab that off him. His ERA is 3.94. Now, what's impressive mostly, I realize, like, in baseball, to have a team under 4 is good also, but think about how our game is played. We talk about that strategy of having to go for it. Like, there are some weeks where you're like, to hell with ERA right now because I want other things. But for him, you know that's happened to him, and to still be 13-5 in ERA, 15-3 in WHIP, and to have a 3.94 ERA all around, I mean, this is just a solid pitching team that I was competing with. I realized that going into the week, so it was just, I had to go for it. When all is said and done, I think I was pretty effective. I was effective enough to grab the 9 stats that I needed, but just tip your cap to the better man this week. That's all there is to it, man.
Yeah, the only thing I'll throw in there is that he's done this without Max Scherzer the last 2 weeks. He hasn't had Scherzer since July 25th when he went down with that injury. Doesn't sound like he's going to be back this week either. So it'll be interesting to see coming down the stretch here what he's capable of doing without his number 1 pick. But that being said, we can jump over to the next matchup. And this is one of those matchups where early in the week, I really thought this was going to be a spoiler week. And Mike Haber came back and absolutely dominated James Santangelo. It ends up being a 15-2 win for Mike. Close categories this week. Mike wins by a double, a steal, 2 strikeouts, 2 saves, and a walk given up by a pitcher. James wins by a walk and a loss. Those were his only 2 wins, and they were by 1 stat. They tied in triples, wins, homers given up by a pitcher, and strikeouts by a pitcher. For Mike this week, he went 6 for 35. That's a 171 batting average. 5 runs, 2 doubles, an RBI, 4 walks, and 10 strikeouts. The 4 walks would have won him that category. Find them. I'm not going to dig through them. Maybe he ends up getting something else that kind of flips a different category. When he's won 15-2, I'm not going to nitpick. By and large, though, he made very few moves. Picked up Trent Grisham, picked up Jesus Aguilar, but John Birdie is the pickup of the week for him. He picked him up on Thursday, and the guy went 3 for 5 with 2 runs and 2 RBIs. He was a guy I was sort of targeting as well when Miguel Rojas went down late last week. I ended up going in another direction, but this kid is legit, and the Marlins offense is kind of starting to come around. It'll be interesting to see how they do the last 6 weeks of this season, but that being said, he did turn around and drop him the next day for Phillip Ervin. Again, Mike had a fantastic week. Saturday was the big day. He hit 414, 485 on base, 8 runs, a double, 4 homers, 9 RBIs, 4 walks, and 2 strikeouts just on that day. Also pitched to he gave up no earned runs over 14 innings, 2 saves, 15 strikeouts, an 0.50 whip, and 5 relief appearances. That made this matchup go from a 10-9 deficit for him to a 15-5 advantage. And he just closed it out on Sunday and made it 15-2. Just a fantastic week for him.
Yeah, I agree. It's I don't know how he could have gotten that walk in there as well. I'm sure he knows better than we do. But a lot of close categories that he snagged here. That's huge for him. His ERA was unbelievable for the week again. We're talking about a manager that, and I said it a couple of weeks ago even, this guy, to me, cemented himself into the Final Four. The tools, the team, the talent. There was a big thing that happened with James Santangelo benching Matt Carpenter and Tapia on the same day. The Tapia one doesn't really matter as much. The Carpenter one does with the double.
Yeah.
James basically plays whoever is out there. He doesn't do a lot of tinkering. So there's, in my impression, this was something that was going to happen no matter what. He still would have played the same players, basically. Mm-hmm. So I do think that double matters because of who was on the bench, because of who he had playing. Didn't even have they weren't even starting that day. So that was just a checking your team thing. So we'll get into his team now. But as far as Mike goes, just on cruise control, a 320 average, 382 on base, a 293 ERA in 58 innings, 41 runs, 39. It seems like he does this every single damn week, and it's impressive to see what he's doing. He's on cruise control.
It's really starting to feel like Mike Haber is the team to beat this year. It looks like he's lining up for another championship for him. And it's gonna take somebody just going up there and knocking him out. He's got a really, really strong team and just continues to add those small pieces to it late in the season. You know, a Jesus Aguilar, or you know, a Trent Grisham, the call up, even the pickup and benching of Jake Junis late in the week. You know, he didn't even need that guy on Sunday, but he picked him up and held on to him. And you know, had he played him, it would have been six innings, a win, which would have given him that category for 16. But he would have given up a homer, so he would have lost that category. You know, like. And he would have got
right,
6 strikeouts. He would have got 6 strikeouts.
Another strikeout.
Exactly. He would have gotten 6 strikeouts. So it would have ended up being, 16-3. At the end of the day, like, that's the type of guy and that's the type of management that wins championships. You know, you have this ace in your hole that you don't even need to use. Let's jump to James.
No, you nailed it on the head, man. Yeah. I mean, this is just, he's so solid every single year. He's only missed the playoffs twice since he's joined in 2008. The first year in 2017. Other than that, he's always in. Amazingly, only one championship in 2012. Mm-hmm. But always in the running, man. And it's just that you're right. You just got to knock them out somehow. Teams have managed to do it, but we're playing now in a year that we've always, over the last few years, I've made changes to the league to just require more strategy, whether it's making a left center and a right fielder versus having just 3 generic outfielders, right. Whether it's bumping the innings, so like you really have to figure out a way to catch 37 and go from there on what you want to do to play up your matchups. Whether it's making your moves the day of versus the day before. This guy just adjusts every single year. And he's just always a strong competitor. And I think now that strategy is like at its highest right now, this guy is going to be so dangerous in the playoffs, just like he is in the regular season, in my opinion. Yeah. Going forward
let's jump to James's team before we look at the future matchup.
Sure.
So for James, he went 6 for 21 on the bench. That's a 286 batting average. 3 runs. The 3 doubles you hit on were huge. 2 RBIs and 4 strikeouts. You know, there wasn't a whole lot to get there, but there was enough that could have flipped a category, especially the doubles like you talked about. You talked about Friday. He left Raimel Tapia on the bench, who went 2 for 4. Yelich didn't play in the utility spot. Carpenter 1 for 3 with a double, a run, an RBI, and a strikeout on the bench. Brandon Belt didn't play first base. His entire team that day hit 154. These 2 guys going 3 for 7, I think would have at least bumped that up into the 190s. You know, it's certainly not going to win him average or on base percentage against Mike this week.
No.
But, you know, you need to mitigate days like that. You know, you need to get as much as you can out of every single day. You know, couple that with Sunday his team hitting 176, and that's, you know, certainly a large reason why he only hit 254 this week. You know, you talked about the lack of moves. Only 3 of them this week. One of them being picking up Raimel Tapia, who he did not play on Friday. It's kind of disappointing to see. He also picked up Chad Pinder. That's about it. Like, this is what James does. He plays the guys that are already on his roster. He makes, you know, minimal tinkering to his team, and I'm pretty sure, he has the least amount of moves in the league this year at only 43. So, you know, he's not gonna be a guy who goes for pitching stats. You know, could he have grabbed a guy on Sunday to go get those strikeouts? Yeah, I think he could have. To go after the win? Yeah, I think he could have if they were available, and that's something else we'll hit on later on.
I kind of swiped them up so early on Sunday.
Yeah.
I will say that they were all gone pretty quickly. I took I think 2 or 3 of them, and then I think Bobby took the last one, if I'm not mistaken. But there was no one to get as far as Sunday. If you wanted to plan ahead, you certainly could have made the move on Friday or Saturday.
Sure.
He couldn't have necessarily assumed what was going on, but at the end of the day, that's what happened.
Yeah. Yep. Key players this week. We'll start with Mike, who, man, what a week he had. Yordan Alvarez goes 455 with a 500 on base, 7 runs, 4 homers, 10 RBIs, 2 walks, and 5 strikeouts. Justin Turner had a good week for him as well. 318 average, 400 on base, 4 runs, 2 doubles, 2 homers, 5 RBIs. The only steal of the matchup comes from Justin Turner, 3 walks and 2 strikeouts. And finally, Eugenio Suarez, 273 average, 360 on base, 6 runs, a double, 4 homers, 4 RBIs, 2 walks, 11 strikeouts you don't like, but he still won that category. At the end of the day, this team, he dominated offensively, only losing one category and only tying one other one. The offense just came to play for Mike Haber this week, and it shows with the 15-2 win. By the same token, his pitching came to play as well. We're going to start with Emilio Pagan. 4 relief appearances, 3 1/3 innings, 3 saves, a homer, 6 strikeouts, a 2.70 ERA, and 0.90 WHIP. He won relief appearances, he won saves, he tied strikeouts, he tied homers. The ERA and WHIP were both his. This guy, I don't know where he came from. This certainly wasn't a guy on the radar as far as closing out games for Tampa. But by process of elimination between, Alvarado and Diego Castillo, this guy is the guy now in Tampa closing these games out. He's got 12 saves on the season. He's got 3 straight games at this point with 3 saves. So that really put the hammer down on James as far as saves is concerned.
Jack, and also Mike Haber, 9-7 in saves. Not even a guy that really, I think, drafted for him really, but has makeshifted his way into being able to do that against his opponents week to week.
Yeah, I mean, Will Smith has won him weeks, at least 2 that I can think of off the top of my head, by himself.
Yeah.
Yeah. So, next is Jack Flaherty, 7 innings, a walk, 10 strikeouts, nothing earned, and 0.71 WHIP. And finally, Mike Soroka, 14 innings, a homer, 2 walks, 9 strikeouts, a 1.93 ERA, and 0.79 WHIP. All of these 3 guys does not include Madison Bumgarner's 7 innings and 0.29 WHIP and a win. It does not include Giovanni Gallegos getting 3 1/3 of clean ball with 3 strikeouts. Mike had a ridiculously good pitching week, and it shows with a 2.93 ERA. He just
and the walks. He keeps those walks for as many innings as Soroka threw to just give up 2 walks over 14 innings. The one from Bumgarner, the one from Flaherty. He won that category, walks given up by 1. Only 15 walks given up in 58 in the 3rd inning. That's why the WHIP was so low at a 1.03. What are you supposed to do about most of this? Even if James did pick up some players, maybe he wins strikeouts. Maybe if he does it along the way, he grabs innings and that wins somehow. He managed to hold on to losses, one of the only 2 categories that he actually won.
Yeah.
And what's amazing is that the 2 categories that James won, he won by 1. There was a possibility of another shutout from Mike Haber to another opponent this season. It's just unbelievable stuff going on with Mike Haber's team.
Yeah.
James, the powerful offense that we talk about with James Santangelo didn't come across this week. And if you're not going to even hit the way you're supposed to, you're not going to pitch against Mike Haber.
Right. And the thing is, with James's offense, which let's just get into that now, key players for him. It's Yasmani Grandal, who only hit .238, but a .385 on base percentage, 2 runs, 2 doubles, 3 RBIs, 5 walks, which is what I'm highlighting here. He led the team in walks. He won walks category by 1. 4 strikeouts and an error. Kyle Schwarber gave him a .263 average, a .333 on base, 3 runs, a double, 2 homers, 4 RBIs, 2 walks, 4 strikeouts. And finally, Dexter Fowler, .381 average, 409 on base, 4 runs, 3 doubles, a homer, 2 RBIs, a walk, 6 strikeouts. You look up and down this lineup, and you look at a guy like Brandon Belt, who hit 158. You look at Daniel Murphy, who hit 100 for the week. Christian Yelich missed the vast majority of the week with a back injury. These are the guys that he has relied on for most of his season, along with David Dahl, who's on the DL currently, and not coming back anytime soon. So these are the guys that he's sort of built this team around. Mike Moustakas hit 120. Like these are the two lineups, the Colorado lineup and the Milwaukee lineup, and neither of them came to play for him this week, and haven't played for him in a couple of weeks now. So it's gonna be interesting to see what happens this week for him going forward, because he faces me, and if Christian Yelich is on his bench, David Dahl is hurt, Murphy doesn't play the way he's supposed to, I'm gonna look to take a big win here as well.
Yeah, it's a big question of whether James is going to have one of those crazy hot weeks or just another one like this if it stays the same.
Mm-hmm.
Hard to say. I really feel like James is a team that on one of these weeks is going to explode. It's just whether it's going to be against you, whether it's going to be against Jason, whether it's going to be against James McCloskey, I believe, is on the schedule, and then the final one is against Josh Haber. If he explodes there, then it just doesn't matter,
right.
But I really just have a feeling at some point he is going to have one of those crazy hot weeks. He's due for it.
Mm-hmm.
I know you're hoping in the position that you're in right now that it's not happening this week.
Well, and here's the thing: David Dahl's still on the DL. He's not coming back. Christian Yelich is dealing with this back injury. I get the feeling like they're going to be putting him on the DL. He struck out as a pinch hitter on Sunday. They don't have a game today, so we'll see on Tuesday whether or not he's back in the lineup. The one thing that James does have going for him, and I've talked about this all season, Colorado's at home all week this week. So Daniel Murphy is a guy that we really need to focus on in this matchup with me this week as whether or not he comes to play. For Mike going forward, like we talked about, man, this is basically, it's his top spot to lose. He gets James McCloskey this week, which is the featured matchup that we have this week. And then his schedule gets pretty light. It's Josh Haber, it's Frank Bucco, and he finishes out the season with Jimmy Dunlap. And the way Jimmy's going, that might be a week where Jimmy's got to win to get in.
Yeah.
We'll get to him later on. But, Mike's going to get really healthy in a hurry here, after he gets out of this matchup with James. And there's no guarantee that, he doesn't do this to James McCloskey. I mean, it's completely possible. We shall see what happens with Mike going forward. I feel like the top spot is kind of his to lose at this point. He's got a 5-game cushion and a very, very favorable schedule going forward. With that, we shall jump to the next...
I think we got to go to James' pitching here.
Oh, yeah. I missed that one. I did just close out the window, so bear with me one moment.
Okay, I'll do it if you need.
It's Tanner Roark. Go ahead and read off Tanner Roark's numbers for me.
Sure. 6 2/3. He did get the loss, but 1 home run given up, 7 strikeouts, a 2.70 ERA, and a .90 WHIP. Not bad.
Yeah. Yep.
Who else did you get?
Robbie. I gave it to Robbie Ray. 6 innings, 3 walks, 7 strikeouts, a 3 ERA, and an .083 WHIP. And Jake Arrieta, though it was not the greatest situation here, with the 7.88 ERA and the 1.88 WHIP, 10 strikeouts is a pretty big number to get. And the fact that he tied those, and Arrieta, he gave up 2 homers, which ends up tying the category. Arrieta is one of those guys, and we talked about him very early in the season when we were discussing, whose pitching staffs we liked. And you said, well, what about Jake Arrieta? I think James Santangelo got a really good pitcher there. And I said, this isn't 2015 anymore. The guy is another year older, another year removed from that ridiculous season. And yeah, he's an innings eater, but he's not getting the strikeout totals that he used to. And here he is now. He's what, 34, I think? 33?
I think
he's 33. He's still dealing with this elbow issue, this bone spur in his elbow. And I think it's starting to show its effects now. His last 4 starts, he's not gone past the 5th inning. He hasn't gone past the 5th inning since the end of June. He's breaking down, and I think this could be a sign of things to come with him going forward.
It's possible. And this was an important signing for the Phillies. I mean, in order for the Phillies to really go far, if they're going to make a playoff run, they would have needed this guy. So this would be a huge backbreaker for the Phillies.
Yeah.
And as far as all those teams that are facing James going down the stretch, this would have been an important piece, but it doesn't even look like he's going to be making his regular starts going forward.
No. It sounds like he's going to be sitting out. It looks like he's on the schedule to pitch against San Diego at home in his next start if he makes it, because it looks like they'll be debating whether or not to put him on the IL. Yeah, that'll wrap up James's team and this matchup as far as I can see. Unless you've got something else, Benji.
No, I know. I think we've said everything that needs to be said.
Yeah.
I mean, it's just about. I think we agree that Mike Haber not only cemented a playoff spot, he's probably cementing the top spot with what he has on the schedule. It just seems like he's going to be on cruise control going forward. Anything can happen, of course.
Sure.
One of us can all of a sudden explode in the next 4 weeks. It's about these teams that need to be going through James Santangelo when they have to face him, and just hopefully you don't run into James on the worst week possible when his offense does what it's done most of the season. Right.
Well, with that, we will jump to Mike Haber's opponent this week. That is James McCloskey, Stanton Room only, who took on Chris Levy. Jose told a story. McCloskey gets out of here with an 11-8 win. He kind of just had that type of score almost all week. For James this week, he won by 2 steals and a win. Chris won by 2 runs, an inning pitched, 2 relief appearances. They tied in triples and losses. I'll get to the inning pitched in a minute because it was something that James was a little bit, I don't want to say upset about, but he was just feeling like there's nobody left to grab. He's in the driver's seat for ERA, WHIP, homers, and walks. You know, his fear was that this kid that Chris had in the Sunday night game of San Francisco and Philly, he knew he was going to lose innings. He was just saying, okay, if this guy could get the loss, or even if this guy could just not get the win, he would be very happy. And that's exactly what happened. We'll get to him in a little bit. For James on the bench, he went 8 for 37. That's a .216 batting average. He left 3 runs on the bench, which he would have to have been perfect in order to flip that category. He left a homer, 8 RBIs, 4 walks, and 14 strikeouts. The only thing that stands out on Saturday, Manny Margot goes 3 for 4 with a homer and 3 RBIs on his bench. The only way to get that guy into the lineup is bench Cody Bellinger. Nobody on planet Earth is doing that. So, but it does hurt to see Manny Margot leave those stats on his bench, even if they are, stats that at the end of the day didn't change the outcome. Pickups and drops for James this week. He picked up Jacob Junis. We talked about this on the show last Tuesday, that he picked him up, and we said, we're going to have to highlight this because it's a really interesting stream to start. And all that guy did, because it was in Boston, he goes 6 innings, gets the win, a walk, 4 strikeouts, a 1.50 ERA, and a 1.33 WHIP. James has had the Midas touch this year when it comes to streaming pitchers. It's sort of tapered off lately, but this is another great example of James finding a diamond in the rough on the waiver wire.
What was the logic, though, behind doing something like that? Because I understand that Boston is something like 8 or 7.5 out of a wild card spot, but there's still 4 games over 500, and we're even higher going into this game. So how did you have the gumption to make the pickup and pitch him in Fenway? I mean, anyone that went to Fenway that day was thinking this is a good win. It's just like Jacob Junis is this year's Edison Volquez, that you can just pick him up. And I mean, even I picked up Jacob Junis and got a win out of him at some point this year. So it's just, the right time to go and grab this guy. But It's not certainly a pickup that I would have played during the week against Boston.
No, I talked to him about it the day we did the show while it was uploading. I came into work and I said, Jake Junis, huh? And he says, he goes, I just got this feeling like Boston has been playing pretty good. They're due for a loss. And the other thing that he pointed out was, if you look at Jake Junis's game log, since July 7th, 7 innings, 7 innings, 6 innings, 6 innings, 7 innings, 6 innings, 6 innings. He's like guaranteed to give you an opportunity for a quality start just by going that deep into the game. And, again, he loses innings by 1 inning, but that's not the fault of Jake Junis, who he threw. And, give him all the credit in the world for finding the balls to throw that guy. Otherwise, he didn't stream another pitcher the rest of the week. He didn't pick up another pitcher the rest of the week. And maybe that's something that he looks at and goes, I could have done that somewhere in there, because that pickup was on Tuesday. He doesn't pick up another pitcher the rest of the week, and he loses innings by 1. Sure, he's running the risk of losing losses and, on the outside chance, walks or whip. But at the end of the day, maybe he could have gone for it in the middle of the week with somebody else. The rest of his pickups.
And at that point, wins are still in play. Wins are still in play very late in the week.
Mm-hmm.
Just stunned that on Sunday, James McCloskey gets 2 wins from his relievers.
Mm-hmm.
I got a text from Chris Levy just being like, wow, that's kind of bullshit. Well, it's not. I mean,
it's not.
Baseball, and, those things happen, and relievers are going to get wins. And James played those guys, so it worked out. Mm-hmm. But it's a tough break for Chris Levy, who's very much, even with the 11-8 loss, very much still in play with this playoff spot. He's just on the outside looking in. I think he's about 4 or 5 out,
mm-hmm.
and in striking distance here. Both of these teams very much in it, also very much in danger. Anything can happen. This was a great little chess match. I enjoyed it a lot.
Absolutely. Talking about Sunday, James did get the decisive win from Hansel Robles. He also got a 7-inning shutout performance from Hyun-Jin Ryu. So without the Robles win, it still would have been tied. It would have been a 10-8 win for James anyway. Again, relievers are going to get wins. That's just the way baseball is. So it's not bullshit. It's just sort of like, okay, that's baseball, and that's what you sign up for when you play these relievers.
You got to account for those things and try
mm-hmm.
to that's going to happen. So I got to ensure more wins, whatever it is.
Sure. Let's jump to Chris's team. 3 for 27 on the bench. That's a 111 batting average. 5 runs, a homer, 5 RBIs, 4 walks, 5 strikeouts, and an error. None of that would have mattered. He won runs, he won homers. Everything plays. So at the end of the day, he missed a Sam Travis homer. Doesn't matter.
No.
The thing I do want to point out here, though, his moves for this week. I don't know if there's another day that had more impact on the outcome of a game or on a weekly matchup than August the 8th, which was Thursday. That day, Chris woke up, dropped Joe Ross, Matt Beattie, and Howie Kendrick. And in his place, he added 5 guys. He added 5 guys that day. He added Sam Travis, who in his lineup went 1 for 3 with a homer and a run and 2 RBIs. He added Alex Gordon, who went 1 for 5 with a homer, 3 RBIs, a strikeout, and a run scored. He added Austin Romine, who went 2 for 5 with a strikeout. He added Ian Happ, who went 2 for 5 with 2 runs, a homer, 4 RBIs, and a strikeout. And he added this kid, Aristides Aquino, 2 for 5, a run, a double, a homer, 3 RBIs, and 3 strikeouts. Just on that day alone, from these additions, 8 for 23, that's a 348 batting average, 5 runs, a double, 4 homers, 12 RBIs, and 6 strikeouts. That won him runs, homers, and RBIs. Alone.
Yeah.
Amazing day from Chris. I give him a ton of credit for that day.
Yeah, it's just a thing of having to fill spots.
Mm-hmm.
And Ian Happ was one of the ones that I was targeting as well. Of course, we know how my pickups went and the choices that I made instead. But Ian Happ was one that I went for. He ends up grabbing a home run that day, I believe. And I give him a lot of credit on the fact that, like, you can really, really lead with egg on your face when you go after these pieces that are in the lineup, and they end up going something like 1 for 15.
Yeah.
You know, and that's not what happened here. He picked up these guys that did damage that day, and now going forward in the next few weeks, he's got Aquino. He's not going to let him go.
No.
And this guy is. He could be going for his first playoff spot. He's been with us since 2014. Same thing with James McCloskey. Been in since 2014, going for his first playoff spot. And Levy, I just give him a ton of credit, man, because, like, when you look at his season, it doesn't feel like he's had an amazing season. He took that 18-0 loss. He avenged it last week, but he's just kind of just chipping away, having some nice weeks here and there, and just hanging on for dear life and just waiting for that, like, big kibosh week. And I feel like it's coming. I really feel like he's got it in him to just all of a sudden take down one of these teams 14-7. I see it in the cards.
Sure. You know, you hit on his 18-0 loss, and he did lose the following week to James McCloskey 13-6. Since then, he's only lost 3 times. To you, to James here, and to James Santangelo 2 weeks ago. Otherwise, it's wins and ties the whole way. So this guy has put together a really strong season since getting off to an awful start. And, you know, he's coming down the final 4 weeks. He's got a really favorable set of matchups. It's Josh Haber, it's Frank, it's Jimmy Dunlap, and it's Nick Homan. That's as solid a Final Four as you could want, you know.
Yes.
Yeah. The final thing I do want to hit on here before we jump to key players, I hit on how well Chris played on Thursday, picking up all those guys. On Saturday, he drops Austin Romine and picks up a kid by the name of Connor Menez. Connor Menez was the starting pitcher for the San Francisco Giants in the night game this past Sunday against Philly. And innings was incredibly close, and he needed this kid to give him, I think it was like 2/3 of an inning to tie. And the kid goes an inning and 2/3. So he gets the innings. But he gets beat up. 3 walks, 4 strikeouts, a 16.20 ERA, and a 3 WHIP. It gets him the ERA, or it gets him the wins, but it just bombs the rest of his stats and gives him no chance for the rest of the afternoon. The unfortunate part is that James didn't have something to counter, because by then all of his relievers had gone, and he's staring down. You know, there's nobody left to move. There's nothing else I can do, and he's sort of stuck watching this kid get bounced around the yard by the Philly offense, yet win the stat out from underneath him.
It's good enough to take 8 stats. I mean,
yeah.
You mentioned it before. He only great, like, the runs, the home runs, the RBIs. Besides the errors, that was the only offensive stats Chris won. So at that point, James is thinking, let me at least do the damage on the pitching side as well. And he did manage to get most of the pitching stats still. So, in my opinion, James has to feel good about himself right now. I understand it always stinks to lose by an inning pitch. Who knows more about losing by 1 inning pitched than the guy that you're talking to right now, Joe? Okay? So, when all is said and done, he's on the inside looking out. And James has a pretty favorable schedule ahead as well. And
we've talked about how good his schedule is.
What's that?
We've talked in the past about how good James McCloskey's schedule is the final 4 weeks. He's got the key matchup against Mike Haber here, which very well might be a playoff preview, but then it's Santangelo, Josh Haber, Frank to finish out the season.
Yeah. No, it's really about getting through this week for him. If he can figure out a way to beat Mike Haber, I mean, everyone can beat Mike Haber. It's just, you got to be great. You got to basically be a perfect manager, and your team's got to perform too. So this is a really big test for James. Even though it seems like he's almost got that playoff spot, he still needs to, I think, win 2 out of 4. But it seems like this is going to be a big test for him.
Absolutely. I completely agree. Let's jump to key players this week. For James, who won the week, we're going to start with his big trade, one of his big trades, Jose Ramirez, 346 average, 414 on base percentage, 6 runs, 4 doubles, 2 homers, 7 RBIs, 2 steals, 3 walks, 4 strikeouts. Is this guy back? I am absolutely on the hype train. This guy has upped his batting average now by over 40 points in the last month. He is on fire. You're still not going to get the 30 homers that you bought in for in the beginning of the season, but he's well on his way to 20. He's got 16 with 64 RBIs and 24 steals. James bought this guy at bargain bin prices and is paying off huge.
Wow. Yeah, you're absolutely right. I mean, I think about this guy as my first pick, and it's long ago that happened at this point. I mean, we are way far removed from my decision to say this guy was a dud. And if you look at his season and his totals when all is said and done, I'd say he still didn't have the season that, even comes close to his baseball card, Joe.
Right.
But at the same time, if you have him now, you have him at the right time.
Mm-hmm.
So when I traded him, I got to be honest, I don't know if my team goes on the run that it does if I had him, so I'm still I'm not torn apart that I lost this guy, because at the same time, I don't know what would have happened if I had kept him.
You would have had to sit through.
Stomach through the bad weeks that he had. I know that he's been hot lately, and I know we've mentioned his name as a key player quite a few weeks now.
Mm-hmm.
But I feel like because my team has needed Lugo, because Sale has pitched well enough for me. It hasn't been a travesty, but the way that Teheran pitched last week, maybe you look at, that was one guy that McCloskey had, and maybe Teheran's a guy that McCloskey would have needed in the playoffs.
Sure.
We might be saying that, but you're right. He bought Ramirez low on a 2-for-1 when he moved Teheran and Jonathan Scope. It seems like it's a great deal now, and it's really paying off.
Absolutely. The other 2 guys I'll highlight here, Jonathan VR, 458 average, 519 on base, 6 runs, 2 doubles, 2 triples, a homer, 3 RBIs, 2 steals, 3 walks, 9 strikeouts, 2 errors you don't like to see, especially when he lost the errors category. But man, Johnny VR single-handedly ties him the triples category, helps win him the steals category, with him and Jose Ramirez getting 4 total. Another guy, he's in a terrible Baltimore lineup, but this is another guy, 270 batting average, 15 homers, 52 RBIs, and 26 steals. He's literally...
He single-handedly tied him and tied Chris in triples. This guy got both the triples. I mean, he fills up the stat sheet, gets the at-bats, and I feel like Jonathan VR is a guy that's now been doing this for quite a few years, that you can fill him in. He steals bases and scores runs. He does damage. He really helps the baseball team. And he was on Chris Levy's team a couple of years ago. Chris Levy made a run, I believe it was 2017 or 2016 when he had him. But I remember him being his 10th man that he would push, throw in all the time.
Mm-hmm.
So it was just kind of interesting to see VR do damage against Chris Levy, a guy that owned VR a couple of years ago and helped him out a lot.
Yeah. Yep. We will we'll highlight Michael Conforto as well for James's team. 438 average, 550 on base, 5 runs, 3 homers, 7 RBIs, a steal, 3 walks. This one kind of hurts because, I traded him Michael Conforto, and he's a Met, and I love seeing what the Mets are doing lately. They're the hottest team in baseball, and Conforto is right in the middle of all of this. And, to see him going off in a lineup with with Bellinger and Judge and Renfroe. You know, it's one of those things. It's bittersweet, right? Because this is a guy that I'm friends with. This is a guy who's never made the playoffs in this league, and you see him putting together a really strong season this year with all of the moves he's made. You know, between the Ramirez trade and now, you know, adding Conforto as a nice piece here in the outfield. He's
now,
put together a
strong
strong
trade again with Conforto.
So the trade was, I received Giancarlo Stanton, Joe Jimenez, Ty Buttrey, Charlie Morton, and Kenta Maeda.
Okay.
And I sent.
It almost seems like the most that you gotten mostly everything out of. Thank goodness Charlie Morton is practically a Cy Young candidate this year, because otherwise, Joe, it's a tough deal.
Oh, it still is a tough deal when you really think about it. Because yes, Charlie Morton's been good. Kenta Maeda's been okay. Joe Jimenez became the closer like I thought he would. Ty Buttrey did not. And Giancarlo Stanton, I got nothing out of. I've literally got nothing out of the prize piece I was going for. In return,
and Hansel Robles went in this deal, and
in return,
Chad Green as well.
In return, James got Hansel Robles and Chad Green, like you talked about. He got Chris Paddock. He got Eduardo Rodriguez. He got Michael Conforto, and he got Matt Chapman, who he flipped for Corey Kluber.
Yeah.
So,
wow.
It's if Kluber comes back and is an ace for him, and he puts him into that rotation, he's already won this trade right now. You know, with the Stanton injury, you know, with Robles and Green closing games for him, you know, he's already won this trade. It's how big is this trade going to be because of the flip of Chapman for Kluber.
Right, there's a big if.
Yeah.
You know, whether Kluber comes back, and he's himself when he comes back, and he's a quality guy that can win in some categories week to week, absolutely.
Let's jump to James's pitching here. You know, we talked about Jake Junis, 6 innings, 4 strikeouts, a 150 ERA, a 133 WHIP in the win. The start was in Boston. You know, it was a really, really savvy move. Hyun-Jin Ryu, 7 innings, a win, a walk, 4 strikeouts, no ERA, and an 0.86 WHIP. This guy has pitched to a 1.45 ERA this year, and if you take out his worst start, which was like 4 innings, it was like 6 runs over 4 innings in Colorado. I saw a stat recently. Somebody said that they took the best ERAs for a season since 1968, which was when Bob Gibson threw that like 1.29 or 1.21, something ridiculous, right? It's like the best ERA ever in the live ball era. If you take out all of their best starts, or all of their worst starts, and then recalculate the ERA, if you take out this start against Colorado, Hyun-Jin Ryu is throwing to a 1.04 ERA this season.
It's got to be the Cy Young for me. I really don't. You can look through a couple of different pitchers in the National League. To me, this guy is far and away the Cy Young, in my opinion.
Yeah.
What a pickup for James. What a run he's on for him.
Yeah.
It is very interesting when we talk about the pitchers for his team, because it's finally a week where the reason why he made that trade was to get some saves mostly. And this was a week that he didn't get a save from Shane Green. He didn't get a save from Hansel Robles.
Nope.
But they still pitched decently. Shane Green not so much, but Hansel Robles was solid. He gets a 1 save from Rogers. He loses the category 6-1. He's won that category a couple of reasons because of the trade with you. This is just one of those weeks where it didn't happen. But when you lose, when your opponent has 6, that's got to be the best time for it not to happen. I mean, if I was going to lose, I'd want to lose by a lot and say, all right, sweet. Because if I got, let's say I get 2 saves from Robles and 2 saves from Green, I still lose that freaking category 6-5, and I don't know if I'm going to get that opportunity next week.
Yeah, if you're going to have a
sign James up for that, right?
Yeah, if you're gonna get an outage in saves, let it be the week that your opponent goes off for 6, 7, 8 saves. And you know what? Just throw your hands up and go, okay, fine, take it. It's only one category, no matter whether you win by 1 or 12. Doesn't matter. Finally, the guy I'm going to highlight for James's pitching, the last guy here is Sonny Gray. 6 innings, a win, 4 walks, 7 strikeouts, nothing earned, and a 1 whip. The guy was lights out against Chicago. You know, the 4 walks is kind of ugly, but considering he only had a 1 whip and he went 6 innings, I'm going to say he only gave up 2 hits, which would make sense. You know, 6 walks or hits over 6 innings is a 1 whip. So, okay, you gave up 4 walks, but he kept that whip way down. And James pitched, you know, James needed it, considering he pitched to a 132 whip. So, we'll jump to Chris's team here. Jose Altuve leads the way here. 364 average, 417 on base, 8 runs, a double, a triple, 2 homers, 6 RBIs, 2 walks, 2 strikeouts, and an error. The aforementioned Aristides Aquino goes 467 with a 529 on base, 5 runs, a double, 5 homers, 9 RBIs, 2 walks, 6 strikeouts. The kid has played like 12 games in his life. He's played 12 major league games. He already has 7 homers. Just ridiculous.
Yeah, but you know what? The Great American Ballpark has been kind of good to him. It's good to a lot of players. It's going to be great for his career.
Mm-hmm.
But I look at this guy's swing, and it is extremely long. I realize I'm not a hitting coach or anything. I'm just a fan. You know, I just have the eyeball test. But it just seems like a type of guy that might get exposed, that might strike out, that might be all over the place chasing pitches. I don't know now, but when he gets them, he gets a hold of them. As long as that swing is how big the leg kick and all the motions and all the working parts and moving parts in order to make the swing happen, it's a very impressive, very powerful swing. I could see it getting exposed and pitchers adjusting to it as we go forward. But as of right now, hell of a pickup. You certainly helped Chris grab these stats and at least get him at least the runs, the home runs, and the RBIs. That was the big reason why.
Absolutely. There is a comp I'm going to make later on in the show. I will harken back to this guy, and I think you're going to completely agree with me. I agree with you 100% on the long swing. You know, he seems like a guy who's going to strike out 150, 200 times a season when he's really, you know, up for the full term. But he's just a masher, man. Michael Brantley is the last hitting guy I'm going to highlight for Chris here. 400 average, 455 on base, 7 runs, a double, a triple, 5 RBIs, a walk, 3 strikeouts, and an error. Brantley's been huge for him all season. I've hit on it before. You know, how did Houston add a 320 hitter to the middle of their lineup with what they've already got on this team? How does nobody go out and sign this guy, and he only signs like a 1-year contract with Houston? Amazing.
Yeah, he's going to make a lot of money next year.
Absolutely. Pitching-wise for Chris, we're going to hit Brandon Workman. 4 relief appearances, 4 1/3, 2 saves, 7 strikeouts, nothing earned, an .069 whip. You know, he single-handedly wins the saves category for Chris here, and helps him
both the relief appearance category.
And gets him 4 strong relief appearances to win that category as well. Lucas Giolito, 12 innings, a win, a loss, 2 homers, 3 walks, 21 strikeouts, a 3.75 ERA, a 1.33 whip. The 2 starts came against Oakland and in Detroit. The Oakland start is the loss, but is the better start with the 13 strikeouts, a 3 ERA, and a 1 whip. You know, he won innings, he won strikeouts. We're going to give it to Lucas Giolito here. Finally, Steven Strasburg, 7 innings, 2 homers, 2 walks, 6 strikeouts, a 3.86 ERA, and 0.86 whip. The start was against our New York Metropolitans. It was a no decision because the Mets are stupid hot and win every game now. You know, again,
winning late in games.
Absolutely. again, I'm just going on, who had the best games with the longest outings. I could have given it to Rick Porcello as well. 6 innings, a win, 5 strikeouts, a 150. At the end of the day, going forward, I see a lot of interesting things happen here. We kind of hit on it already. Both these guys have very favorable schedules coming forward. Chris needs to do more work. Obviously, he needs to get himself righted and get to the promised land here. He is sitting in 8th, 5 back of the 6th place team with Bobby in between him. So he needs to jump a team and actually jump 2 in order to get to the playoffs. It's going to be tough, but he's got the schedule to do it. It'll be interesting to see.
He does. He's got. They both do. I didn't mean to cut you off, Joe, but
no,
I just
you're
wanted to throw in. There's unsung heroes, in this matchup. Guys like Joe Kelly and Robles and Marcus Walden, who had some relief appearances, and their whips were very low, .46 for Walden, .50 for Joe Kelly. Each of them had 3 appearances, and finally, in his 2 appearances, Robles with a .43. Those 3 guys, Joe, that won him whip. 132 to 142. It's little things like that can grab you a stat and be just enough to secure a playoff spot in the 6th spot. I mean, all these close categories from these guys, we talked about the other matchups. This one had one as well. Both of these guys have to just be thankful they didn't get doubled up, turn the page off the schedule, and hope for that big win. It's coming from one of them.
Yeah, somebody's going to get a big win, and somebody's going to jump into the playoffs. Well, let's jump to another matchup here, which on paper, coming into the weekend, looked like it was going to be another huge win, and actually ends up being a mitigated mitigated loss for Jimmy Dunlap. So Mike Sherman, Kershaw for Passover, takes the win 12-7 over Jimmy Dunlap. Close categories this week. Mike didn't win anything close, but you'll see why in a minute. Jimmy wins by 7 ticks on the batting average, 2 ticks on the on-base percentage, which is pretty surprising when you see what happened. They tied in errors and relief appearances. For Mike, who won the week, he went 0 for 8 with 4 strikeouts on his bench. That's it. Nothing else to write home about. However, pitching-wise, he left Matt Albers on the bench twice with 2 relief appearances, and they tied that category. Just absolutely dreadful. It was Friday and Saturday. Albers comes in on Friday, and I'm sure he went, oh no, I just lost this guy. There's no way he comes in back-to-back games, and he does. And that's a killer. Because, he definitely had the ability to play that guy either of those days. Whether it was Saturday the 10th, where Albers comes in, gets an inning, actually got the save there, and whether it was Sean Kelly in Texas who didn't pitch, Andrew Chafin in Arizona who didn't pitch, or substitute them in for Yohan Lopez or Luke Jackson or Petit, those 6 guys. This is definitely a spot where he could have gotten another stat. As well on Friday, he came in, got 2/3 of an inning, gave up 2 walks and a strikeout, nothing earned, 3 whip. Had he played him instead of Sean Kelly, who threw 2/3 of an inning, gave up 2 walks, a 40-50 ERA and a 7.50 whip, that's horrendous to see when you're coming in this close with ERA. It was less than half a run. There's the spot where Mike could have gotten some stuff done there. Otherwise,
yeah.
I mean,
now is that a bigger loss to Mike Sherman at this point, or a bigger win for Jimmy Dunlap? I realize the score was still Mike Sherman still won this week.
Yeah,
but with I guess with the team the name change from Jimmy Dunlap,
right?
He kind of feels like a sinking ship, I guess is the point.
I think that's what he's saying. I think that's what he's saying.
Right. So at the same time, there are so many winnable stats for Sherman, and for Jimmy to still come up with 7, as he feels like he's starting to fall out of it. With 4 weeks to go, he's still very much in it. Mm-hmm. So I want to know how you feel about, like, in general, like, because of the score, like, who do you feel like this is bigger for? Who do you feel like this is tougher for? As we look at the standings, as we look at the schedule going forward, what's your outlook there?
I feel, just without looking at anything else right this second, I feel like it is a bigger loss for Mike Sherman. This guy is on a run, and he's trying to get every single category he can to try to make the playoffs. To not get this one that was completely gettable, along with batting average and on-base percentage. Now, granted, there was nothing on his bench that he could have gotten. He did as well as could be expected. You know, like I said, what was it, 0 for 8 with 4 strikeouts or something? Yeah, 0 for 8 with 4 strikeouts on his bench. There was nothing to be had there. And his offense came to play. I just think that when you're hitting that well, and you're going to get the majority of stats the way he played, to lose out on a single pitching stat like that on a very gettable play might hurt him in the long run. If he doesn't make the playoffs and it's by one stat, this is it. This is it. You know, it's the relief appearance of Matt Albers this late in the game. And
yeah, that's one. I mean, we look at last week, we talked about how on the Sunday night game he could have benched his Yankees and that would have won him strikeouts instead of losing them. I mean, there are little things along the way, but they add up for sure.
Sure, absolutely. Let's hit on his pickups this week. There was really nothing to write home about, though he did cut bait with J Happ finally. I found that one interesting. He did that on Sunday to try to get Jesse Chavez as the final relief appearance. Doesn't look like that happened for him, unfortunately. Obviously, because he did not win the category. Jesse Chavez is a guy that I had recently, and he did not get into the game for him. Mostly because it was a 1-0 win. It was a really strong outing from, I think, Mike Minor, and they went straight to Leclerc after that. So, you know, take that for what it is. It was a move. He tried to get it. He went for it and tried to get it. He also picked up Yoshi Hirano, who also didn't get into the game. So he went for it. He was trying to find it. It sounds like he already missed out on it. For Jimmy this week, he went 7 for 36. That's a 194 batting average. 5 runs, 3 doubles, 3 homers, 5 RBIs, a stolen base, 2 walks, 10 strikeouts. None of that matters. None of it matters. You know, I could sit here and tell you about Will Smith, you know, hitting a homer on his bench and Gary Sanchez 0 for 3. I could tell you about Scott Kingery on the bench and 2 of the positions going 0 for 9 with 3 strikeouts. His entire team hit 121 on Sunday. At the end of the day, Jimmy's team came to hit for average. Mike's team exploded for power. 46 runs, 24 homers. That's a Biggs record. That's a Biggs record standing alone against weeks where there were 10, 11 days in them. 24 homers is the record for home runs in a week. 46 RBIs.
Yeah, and don't forget, Ramos just missed one Saturday night. It went, the guy needed to basically jump to the top of the wall at the warning track to basically pull it down. So
yeah,
could have been even more.
Yeah, 46 RBIs, 10 steals, 26 walks. These are numbers that nobody's touching. Nobody is touching, with one exception that we'll get to later in the show. But, I mean, 10 steals? 10 steals is like, it's only one off of the all-time record for the Bigs. That is ridiculous. We'll hit on his key players in a minute, but getting back to Jimmy's team, the moves this week, I mean, he streamed a bunch of pitchers. He definitely won innings to get there. He pitched to a good ERA. It's just Mike had a better one with 78 innings, and Mike got 9 wins. He went 9-1 this week. You know, this is a week that...
That's amazing. I mean, that's amazing right there,
yeah.
Right?
If I'm honest, this is a week where Mike should have won it, much more like what happened, you know, Friday and Saturday, where he was up 15-5 and 15-6. Jimmy came back on Sunday and found a way to get, you know, a few stats here and there. I think Mike caught an error on Sunday, which tied that up. The relief appearances got tied. You know, Jimmy flipped one or two categories. I would assume it's going to be innings pitched. You know, he found a way. He found a way to mitigate the loss and did not take that 15-5, 15-6 loss that we never want to see. 12-7 you can live with, especially this close to the playoffs. Let's jump to key players, shall we? For Mike.
Yeah, sure.
For Mike, holy shit, where do I start?
The polar bear?
What's that?
The polar bear first?
Okay, because he was the weakest of the three I'm going to highlight. Pete Alonso, 292 average, 393 on base, 4 runs, 4 homers, 7 RBIs, 2 walks, 9 strikeouts, and an error. That's the weakest of the 3 guys I'm going to highlight. Mike Tauchman, 417 average, 517 on base, 7 runs, 2 doubles, 5 homers, 10 RBIs, 2 steals, 5 walks, 5 strikeouts. Ronald Acuna Jr., 419 average, 471 on base, 12 runs, 6 homers, 10 RBIs, 3 steals, 3 walks, 11 strikeouts you don't like, but holy shit, man, those, and we're not even bringing up Fernando Tatis's 3 homers, 7 RBIs, a triple, you know, 2 steals, 280 and a 379. Like, this is insane.
Yeah.
And yet,
I've never seen such an onslaught that I just kept on looking at Mike's team day to day. Oh, another homer, another homer. I mean, it just did not stop. I can't believe that Acuna had 6, you know, and Tauchman had 5 on the same day. Just those 2 guys, 11 home runs, and that's going to beat most of the teams this week.
Yeah. And here's the thing. We look at this, and you see all of these counting stats, and Mike lost average and on-base percentage.
Yeah.
Manny Machado hit .043. Gleyber Torres didn't have a hit. Danny Santana hit .087. He had guys who didn't show up, and you know it's pretty disappointing that you know an output like this somehow doesn't win average and on base percentage. And give credit where it's due to Jimmy, who was able to again mitigate this loss. Pitchers for Mike, we're going to go Dinelson Lamet, 12 innings, a win, a homer, 7 walks, you don't like that, 19 strikeouts, a 150 ERA, and even with 7 strikeouts over 12 innings, it's a 1 whip. So that means he only gave up 5 hits over those 12 innings. It's amazing. Clayton Kershaw, 7 innings, a win, a walk, 9 strikeouts, a 1.29 ERA, and 0.71 whip. And finally, Mike Fiers, 7 innings, a win, 8 strikeouts, nothing earned, at 0.43 whip. We could also hit on Andrew Chafin's 3 1/3, 2 wins, 4 strikeouts, and 0.30 whip, 3 relief appearances. You know, pitching-wise for Mike, it came to play again. You know, this is not an average week where you see your opponent go off for 98 1/3 innings. 78 is probably good to win you most weeks. You know, 81 strikeouts is probably good to win you most weeks. You know, 11 homers you don't like, 25 walks might not play every week, but going 9-1 over 78 innings with a 3.12 ERA, I would take that every single week, and I'm pretty sure I would win most weeks. We'll jump to Jimmy's team. Alex Bregman led the way, 500 average, 619 on base, 10 runs, 5 doubles, a homer, 7 RBIs, 4 walks, no strikeouts, and an error. The unfortunate part is that this type of performance is just really just sort of thrown on the back burner when you see what his opponent did.
But at the same time, you can't ignore the average and the on-base percentage because he won those categories. Mm-hmm. That's a first-round player. That's what he drafted.
And the no strikeouts over a week. You know, Jimmy won strikeouts by 25. You're not going to see 25 strikeouts from a guy, but holy crap, like no strikeouts over how many at-bats? Like probably, just ridiculous. And he got a hit every single day but Sunday. So just a ridiculous week for Bregman. Tim Anderson gave him a good week as well. 520 average, 538 on base, 6 runs, 2 doubles, a steal, a walk, 4 strikeouts. Another guy, he's come back off the DL, picked up right where he left off, and has been amazing for Jimmy this season. Finally, a guy I didn't even know was a person until this week, Anthony Santander. I don't even know who this is. A 346 average, a 346 on base, a run, 4 doubles, a homer, 2 RBIs, 4 strikeouts, and an error. What do you know about this salamander guy?
Okay, I love it. What I know is that the Orioles are very high on him. He is kind of one of their under the radar, and they kind of didn't expect him to explode like this. I know that you haven't heard about him until a little bit ago, but this is a guy that I had on my team, and I've been bummed out that I did let him go for about a month now. This guy has been a very solid player, and it seems like the Orioles are very confident that this guy can be a starter, everyday player. 302 average, 9 home runs, and 33 RBIs, 30 runs. But we're talking about 222 at-bats. That's a pretty decent sample size to have a 302 batting average and a 344 on base.
Yeah.
15 doubles to me. That says to me the guy is worth at least 35 doubles. If it's not even, we're not even talking about 250 at bats yet. So solid player. They're looking for someone to be the star of their team going into the future, and they might have it with this guy.
Okay, it's a guy to look at next year. I mean, you said it, just over 200 at bats. If you extrapolate that out, that's like close to it's like 25 homers and close to 100 RBIs.
Yeah, that's what he is. But the thing that's most impressive to me is the batting average.
Yeah.
I mean, it doesn't need to be 300. It could be something like 275 and 280 with those kinds of stats that is showing like you're going to have 35 doubles a year, 25 to 30 dingers, 90 RBIs. That's all it's got to be, But if he's going to have the average at 300, I mean, that could carry a team.
Absolutely. Let's jump to his pitchers real quick. Mike Minor, 15 innings, 2 wins, 18 strikeouts, 2 walks, nothing earned, an .087 whip. The starts were in Cleveland and in Milwaukee. So the Milwaukee start was the one I mentioned earlier, where Mike picked up Jesse Chavez to try to get that relief appearance. Well, Minor went out and pitched 8 shutout innings, 11 strikeouts, and handed the ball off to Jose Leclerc to close the game. That probably sucks twice as hard for Sherman this week, seeing Mike Minor on his opponent's team, and he picked up they're using Jesse Chavez kind of as the bridge between the two, from the starter to Leclerc. So to see Minor put that performance together must sting even harder.
Yeah, you're right. It's like a double whammy. You're right, because he didn't even give. He had such a good performance that he didn't even give his manager the opportunity to put any other pitcher into the game besides his closer.
Exactly.
You're right.
Yeah. Luis Castillo had a great week for him as well. 13 2/3, a win, 2 homers, 2 walks, 21 strikeouts, a 3.29 ERA, and .088 WHIP. The strikeout to inning pitched is just ridiculous. 21 strikeouts over 13 2/3. The starts came against at home against the Angels and at home against the Cubs. 13 strikeouts, the win in 7 innings against the Angels. 8 strikeouts and 6 2/3 against the Cubs. Just a massive week from Castillo, who's been doing it basically all season. He's pitched to a 2.69 ERA. He's got 11 wins, a 1.11 WHIP. 172 strikeouts and 143 2/3. This kid put together a really strong second half last year, and I remember coming into the season going, "This is a kid I might want to get on my team." And Jimmy grabbed him in the 11th round, which was really a really great pick for him. Finally, we're going to hit Brad Hand here. 3 relief appearances, 3 1/3, a win and 2 saves, 2 walks, 4 strikeouts. The 5.40 ERA and the 2.40 WHIP you don't like, but again, when you get those saves and you tie the relief appearances and you got 7 wins, which should win most weeks, you got to highlight the reliever who led the way, and that's going to be Brad Hand. Going forward,
so where are we, man? Like, where are we as far as how we feel like these 2 teams who just completely went at it? Just 2 powerhouses in our league. You got to consider Mike Sherman a playoff contender at this point. He's still on this crazy ride. He can definitely pull off this miracle.
He still can. He's got the harder schedule of the 2, though. He gets one more week with Nick Homan here to get a few more wins under his belt, and then he runs the gauntlet of you, Bobby, and me to finish the season. That's going to be his way in. He wins, I would say, 2 out of those 3, and I feel like he's going to make it. Jimmy, on the other hand,
he does, because he's playing against guys that are in front of him, so he can control his destiny if he can just win out.
Jimmy, on the other hand, has an interesting route here. He gets Uncle Barry, who's always a tough out. He gets Andy, who we know is going to be a tough out. He then gets Chris Levy, a guy who's fighting to get in. And then he finishes the season with Mike Haber. That's a rough final 2 weeks. I wouldn't say it's as rough as the final 3 weeks for Mike Sherman. It's going to be interesting. I feel like these are 2, I wouldn't be surprised if Jimmy, Bobby, Chris, and Mike Sherman are all within 2 games of each other for that 6th spot at the end of the season. And you know what? Throw my name in there too, because I could very well be mixed up in this.
Yeah, it seems like it's just going to be so close. And now, because Sherman has somehow catapulted himself back into this race, as the Mets go, that there are a couple, 3 in particular, that are on Sherman's team. It has also catapulted the Mets. It has also catapulted Mike's team. And now we talked about how 2 managers were going to have a heartbreaking ending. Now it's going to be 3.
Yeah, absolutely. We're now at 9 teams with 6 teams to get in, and it feels like 2 of them are locked in you and Mike Haber. So it's basically 16? It's 7 teams for 4 spots. 7 teams for 4 spots, and man, this is tight. Between you look at everything from 4th to 9th, and it's 9.5 games from 4th to 9th. You can lose by 9 very easily in this league on any given week. So yeah, these guys are going to be. It's going to be a dogfight. They're going to be fighting each other. They're going to be fighting everybody else along the way. Sherman has the interesting route of being able to play 3 teams ahead of him on the way in. Jimmy gets 1 team below him, so that guy could be fighting his way up, and then gets Mike Haber to finish out the season. Really,
I'm going to throw some stats at you right now.
Go for it.
Jimmy Dunlap, 9-8 in runs, 6-11 in doubles, 6-6 in triples, 10-7 in home runs, 8-10 in RBIs, 7-8-3 in stolen bases, 13-4 in walks, 10-8 in strikeouts, 9-7 in errors, 10-8 in average. On base percentage is 11-7. Pretty solid across the board as far as staying around or on top of on base percentage, over 500. As well as far as Mike Sherman goes, 9-9 in runs, 3-14 in doubles. Another one that's under 500 in doubles.
Wow.
5-5 in triples, 12-5 in home runs, 9-9 in RBIs, 11-6 in stolen bases, 7-10 in walks, 4-13 in strikeouts. That's tough. 5-11 in errors is tough. 8-10 in average is kind of tough. 10-8 in on-base percentage. Any of those numbers in general, anything surprised you or anything like that?
Mike Sherman's strikeout strikeout rate really surprises me. You know, being 4-13 on the season in strikeouts, you know, along with being 3-14 in doubles. That's not going to play. You know, maybe it returns to the mean. He did not win doubles this week. He did not win strikeouts this week. It's just sort of indicative of that team. And, you know, he's got a bunch of guys who strike out a lot. Acuna, Danny Santana, Manny Machado, you know, Pete Alonso. He's got a lot of guys that strike out a lot. The thing that
and he has the third to most strikeouts in our entire league with 1,032. So yeah, like you said, he's got a lot of guys that do it, and it's just showing like that's something like just from week to week you can he nails in that stat basically. He's going to play his hard hitters, and I guess he just hopes for the best because he plays a short lineup. If there's 7 or 8 batters in his lineup for one day, maybe that's the difference that maybe wins him that stat on a week. Mm-hmm. But for the most part, that's something that he's been mailing in.
Yeah, if I'm honest, I still see Jimmy as the team that gets in out of these two. If it's just those two in a vacuum, but we'll see. You know, there's a lot that can happen in the final 4 weeks here. Any real life injuries or amazing performances going forward can absolutely just turn the tide. And you hit on it. You know, this run that Mike has been on, especially the last 2 or 3 weeks, has been basically in line with the Mets' run. And, with Jeff McNeil, Wilson Ramos, and Pete Alonso all on his team, it shows. Do the Mets continue this hot streak? Does Mike Sherman mirror that hot streak? Because just because the Mets are hot doesn't necessarily mean his team is going to hit like this again. He grabbed Mike Tauchman.
Right. But at the same time, those 3 guys could go cold. Mm-hmm. The Mets could go cold, but the rest of Mike's team can pick up those guys and still maybe do enough to win him some certain offensive categories.
What I see that needs to happen here, though, is his infield needs to hit a whole lot better. Gleyber Torres did not get a hit all week. He didn't play the majority of the games, but he went like 0 for 13 on the week with 3 strikeouts. Manny Machado hit 0.43. Danny Santana hit 0.87. Fernando Tatis gave him a serviceable 280 and 379 on base. But, man, if you're going to have your second-round pick in Manny Machado, your fourth-round pick in Gleyber Torres, and, a hot guy that you had picked up off the waiver wire in Danny Santana, all give you batting averages under 100, that's gonna be an Achilles heel, and it's gonna cripple you.
Right, especially if it continues, and then all of a sudden those hot hitters like Tauchman and Alonso and Ramos, those guys start to slump. Mm-hmm. Then there's no one else to pick up the slack.
Right.
So you're right. It does have to be the offense because Sherman's pitching is there. And he's 13-5 innings pitched, 7-5 in wins, 9-7 in losses. 11-6 in home runs given up. He's 12-6 in ERA. He's 10-8 in WHIP. He's 11-4 and 3 ties with relief appearances. So the pitching is there, and he's got the hitting team to do it. It's just a matter of if you're going to catch them at the right time in these next 4 weeks. I'm hoping he pulls it off. I mean, I realize
it'd be a hell of a story.
It might be a sad story for another guy, but like for our league, what he's doing, the run he's on, we talk about some stats that he missed the chance on. If he still somehow pulls it off, Joe, it's miraculous. It's going to be an unbelievable thing that we'll talk about if he ends up finding his way in and then somehow makes a run.
Yeah, he absolutely could go deep into the playoffs with this roster. All right, jumping into the next matchup here, it's going to be me and Bobby Russo, Angels in the Trout Field. I get the win 10-9. Bobby, I'm rocking the Ric Flair t-shirt just for you, buddy. To be the man, you got to beat the man, and you didn't beat the man this week. Close categories this week for me and Bobby. I won by 2 wins and a save. Bobby wins by a homer, 2 steals, and an error. We tied in triples, and homers given up by a pitcher. For me, on my bench, I went 1 for 13. That's an .077 batting average, 2 runs, 2 walks, and 3 strikeouts. not a whole lot I could do there. Moves for me. Saturday was the big day, and it was a day I absolutely had to. Bobby and I were very close in innings pitched, and I was down by 2 wins, along with my ERA being kind of shit and strikeouts being relatively close. I had 2 of my starters going in, I believe it was Morton and Maeda, and it was. And I wanted to supplement that, so I added Mike Montgomery, who was facing Detroit, who was in Detroit, and I added Adam Wainwright, who was at home against Pittsburgh. Wainwright, I thought, was going to be an innings eater. I wanted to solidify innings. I figured if I could get 6 out of him, that'd be great. Montgomery, I liked the matchup against Detroit, thought maybe that was something I could win. Well, Montgomery went 7 innings, got the win, 12 strikeouts, nothing earned, and 0.57 whip. Wainwright goes 6 innings, gets a win, gives up a homer, 2 walks, 8 strikeouts, a 1.50 ERA, a 1.33 whip. You pair that with Kenta Maeda going 7 innings of shutout ball with 6 strikeouts and a win against Arizona with an 0.43 whip, and Charlie Morton going 6 innings in Seattle, getting a win, a homer, and 10 strikeouts. He did have a 6 ERA, but a 1.50 whip. Those 4 guys, 4 guys, what was it, 26 innings, 4 wins, 36 strikeouts. Amazing starting day for me on Saturday. And Bonnie texted me and goes, "Holy shit! How could you even do that? I totally bombed his innings and gave him no chance to catch me on innings or wins." To where he had Stephen Brault lined up for a start on Sunday, and there was really no reason to start him because our ERA was close enough that Brault could ruin it if he had a bad start. Otherwise, I chased relief appearances. Bobby just blew me out of the water there. But I did pick up Brian Anderson, who I'll hit on later, and picked up Luis Ariz, who I'm going to hit on later as well. For Bobby, he went 10 for 33 on his bench. That's a 3.03 average, 4 runs, a homer, 5 RBIs, a steal, 3 walks, 9 strikeouts, and an error. Again, none of that really plays either because he won runs, he won homers. The RBIs wasn't enough to get it for him. He won stolen bases, walks wasn't enough, and he lost strikeouts. So, again, I could sit here and tell you about Will Myers, but it doesn't really matter at the end of the day. Moves-wise for Bobby, Tucker Barnhart was a good pickup for him, I think twice this week. He picked him up, went 1 for 4 with a strikeout on Monday, and then picked him up again later in the week on Saturday, went 2 for 4 with an RBI and a walk. Some of the pitchers were solid enough for him. He did pick up Robert Stevenson on Sunday to solidify the relief appearances that he got out of him. Overall, good week for Bobby. This was a pretty big dogfight, and it wasn't anything that I couldn't relax at any point in this matchup. I needed to keep plugging away and keep getting my stats because it was a team that, again, is on the outside looking in, has been on the outside looking in for a few weeks now, and he's right there. He's what, a game and a half, 2 games out of 6?
I think he's one, just one.
Mm-hmm.
1 or 2. I know it's either like a full 1 or a full 2.
It's actually a game and a half.
Okay.
It's a game and a half out of 6.
Yeah, I was right.
Yeah, it's a game and a half out of 6. He's right there. And, we keep saying that Bobby's in the perfect spot. But Bobby hasn't moved out of 7th yet.
But that's okay. That's okay because it just needs to happen 1 week for him. You and I know how long it takes to make up a stat and a half.
Yeah.
So we could talk about everything that you did on Saturday. That was huge. The pickups that you made, like Brian Anderson, what he's done, and how Bobby used to have Brian Anderson at one point.
Mm-hmm.
That you kind of chipped away and didn't have to. That you couldn't really let down your guard at any point. But let's just talk about Sunday just for a moment because all Osuna needs to do for the Houston Astros is just close the game.
Close it out.
And if he just does that, Joe, he wins.
Mm-hmm.
Bobby wins and you lose.
Mm-hmm.
But instead, not only does he not get the save that would have tied the category, he gives up a home run, a category that Bobby was leading by 1,
mm-hmm.
now becomes tied. Just from that thing happening, that changes a win to a loss. And we can say everything that went down from Monday through the middle of Saturday, but that's all that needed to happen. So it's just amazing when you look at these two powerhouses, two brilliant minds in fantasy baseball play fantasy chess against each other. And you guys did a hell of a job. This was one that, again, was really, really fun to watch. Like, Bobby had the lead most of the time, it felt like, Joe. There was one time, maybe a day where then you had it, but for the most part, it seemed like he had you in check. And then Saturday happened, and then the meltdown from Osuna on Sunday, he ends up getting the loss. That the loss is not what really affected him.
No.
But it was the
lack of save and the home
run given up.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, the lack of the save and the home run is what really did him in. You hit it on the head. Bobby had me pretty solid. It was 6-10 on Tuesday, 8-11 all the way through Thursday, and then Friday had me 10-9. But Saturday is what flipped it. That huge 4-0 day, 27 innings, 38 strikeouts. That flipped it to 10-9 in my favor, and I just held on. Like, I can't sit here and say that I dominated Bobby. I certainly fucking didn't. I was very fortunate to get out of this with a win. It's it's sort of righting my ship here with back-to-back 10-9 wins over really strong managers in you and Bobby after taking two pretty hard losses. And we'll see what happens with me going forward. I get James Santangelo, and then I get Jason, Ari, and Mike Sherman. So it's not exactly all roses for me, but we'll see where we go from here. Let's jump to key players. I mentioned it earlier. It's Brian Anderson for me. Brian Anderson went 367 with a 457 on base, 7 runs, 4 doubles, 3 homers, 6 RBIs, 3 walks, and 8 strikeouts. Luis Arraez, who I picked up to replace Miguel Rojas, who got hurt, replacing Yohan Moncada. Arraez, 556 average, 583 on base, 2 runs, a double. The triple is the key thing here because that tied the category. 4 RBIs, 2 walks, no strikeouts, no errors. This guy is just kind of ridiculous, and I sort of made jokes when he was on Frank's team earlier this year. But man, he is legit. He's hitting 350, and this is not like a small sample size. He's got over 200 plate appearances at this point. Finally,
no doubt, dude, and it just goes to show because it seems like those pickups that you make with your offense just. Every little bit helps. You lead the whole entire league in batting average with a 276. I mean, it's just right now your offense has really done you a lot of favors to at least keep you in this thing. Obviously, just 2-10-9 wins, but that's 2 over 500 in the last 2 weeks, keeping you around. You're waiting for that lopsided win. It might be coming in the next 4 weeks, but you're certainly in a good position because your hitting week to week has been really consistent.
Yeah, to that end, Juan Soto has been a savior for me. 368 average, 538 on base percentage this week, 5 runs, a double, 3 homers, 6 RBIs, 2 steals, 7 big walks, 2 strikeouts. Now, he did roll his ankle late in the game yesterday, and doesn't look like he's in the lineup today. So they might just be giving him a day off. I certainly hope that's all it is, and he's back in the lineup because, man, this guy cannot go down for me, or that might be the season breaker. Pitching-wise for me, Jose Leclerc, 2 relief appearances, 2 innings, all clean, 2 saves, a strikeout, and an 050 whip. This is the guy I traded in the Bauer and Polanco for, and he's turned into exactly what I thought he was going to be, and that's a solid closer at the back end of the Rangers rotation. Mike Montgomery, I hit on him earlier, 7 innings, 12 strikeouts, nothing earned, 0.57 whip. And finally, Charlie Morton, the 13 innings, a win, a loss, 2 homers, 19 strikeouts, a 4.15 ERA, a 1.23 whip. Huge week for me from him. You know, the strikeout numbers, the innings total, fantastic week. For Bobby, Ketel Marte had another fantastic week, 308 average, 357 on base, 3 runs, the triple, an RBI, 2 steals, a walk, and 3 strikeouts. Mike Trout is doing Mike Trout things, 316 average, 480 on base, 6 runs, a double, 3 homers, 5 RBIs, a steal, 5 walks, 10 strikeouts, and an error. And finally, Josh Bell finally came to life, and I'm very sad it was against me this week. 357 average, 471 on base, 5 runs, 2 doubles, 2 homers, 4 RBIs, 3 walks, and 4 strikeouts. The guy hadn't hit a homer, 26 games, they're saying. And he comes out and hits 2 homers on Sunday, which gives him the homer category. Just kind of heartbreaking there to see a guy who was that cold finally break out of it on Sunday to give Bobby the win in the category.
Oh, I know how that is, though, man. That's just how it goes sometimes. I mean, he's due. It's going to happen at some point, and it was going to happen to someone. It stinks when it does happen to you, but that's just baseball. Like, just on Sundays, you know, that's the unfortunate backbreaker of the category that just flips it from you leading it to all of a sudden losing it. My concern with Bobby's offense is that it's just kind of middle of the road with most of it. Yeah, he's 11-6 in runs, 8-7 in doubles, 4-7 in triples. I kind of count that out. 9-9 in home runs, 9-9 in RBIs, 7-11 in stolen bases, 13-5 in walks, 9-8 in strikeouts, 11-6 in errors. That's good, but you can kind of throw that aside also in defense. 8-10 in average, and 9-9 in on-base percentage.
Yeah. If
Mike Trout wasn't doing Mike Trout things, Joe, I don't know if Bobby would be in 7th place. I'm pretty sure he wouldn't be, because his pitching is also kind of, if we look at his matchups there as well, it's kind of middle of the road. So it's just him kind of just, you know, shooting for par, basically, this season. There's been some great moments for him, but at some point, you know, he's just got to explode, and it's got to be more than Mike Trout.
Yeah. Yeah, and you know, for most of the season, it's been Mike Trout, Ketel Marte, and Josh Bell. Well, Josh Bell was really cold for the last, 3 weeks. And, you know, after those guys, there's really not a whole lot. Like, he traded for Matt Chapman thinking that was going to be the upgrade at third base he needed. That guy has been ice cold since the All-Star break. You know, he's just not hitting the way Bobby was going to buy into him. And it's a shame that this is the situation he's in. You know, he's been sort of fighting with the catcher position for most of the season. Right now it's Robinson Chirinos, who didn't give him anything this week. You know, he's been dealing with Will Myers and playing time issues. You know, Brett Gardner and playing time issues, though Gardner has actually had more playing time than anticipated because of all the injuries to the Yankees. You know, whether it's you know, Brian Dozier, Nick Markakis going down, Stephen Piscotty, Lorenzo Cain, like there's so many upside guys that just aren't performing the way they should be.
Yeah, and it just shows because right now, as it stands, even with Mike Trout, Bobby is dead last in batting average with a 254. So that's just tough, and it has to be picked up in the next 4 weeks.
Yeah.
I can't see him just cruising through if his hitting is just going to be pedestrian. Like, I think you need some other guys, and I think maybe Bobby just needs to make some savvy moves just to, like, pull it off, you know, just to try to get a few hits here and there. I will say, you know, guys like Brett Gardner, like, who's having, like, the best season of his career, you know, Ketel Marte exploding, like you mentioned, you know, like, there is the talent there, you know, it's just it's going to also be Bobby, like, knowing who to play, who to bench, who to pick up on that particular day, who's his pick to click. It's going to have to be things like this over the next 4 weeks because right now the numbers are what they are. I mean, he sees, what his players can do, and it's just going to be about him making the right picks day to day.
Yeah, and the thing is, his schedule is not favorable. He gets Jason this week, Ari next week, Mike Sherman in week 21, and finishes out with Uncle Barry. And we've talked about that Uncle Barry matchup being a trap.
Yeah.
If he continues to do things like this, like he hit for 264 this week, that's above his average for the season, but not by much. He hit under his average or his on base percentage by 1. Like, this is his team. This is what he's going to do week to week. He's going to hit 260-ish. His on base percentage is going to be 340-ish. And if you can beat that, and the vast majority of teams do, it's going to be rough for him.
Yeah.
Let's jump to his pitchers real quick, because he did have a decent week pitching. He pitched to a 3.81 ERA and a 1.12 WHIP. Alex Claudio gave him 4 relief appearances, all clean, 2 innings, 2 strikeouts, a 1 WHIP. Cal Quantrill gave him a good start, 7 innings, a win, 5 strikeouts, nothing earned, 0.71 WHIP. That start was against Colorado at home. As we know, Colorado hits at home and for whatever reason just does not do very well on the road. And here's another good example of that. Finally, Noah Syndergaard, again, back to the Mets, 7 innings, a homer, 2 walks, 5 strikeouts, a no decision, 2.57 ERA, a 1.29 WHIP. I believe that was also the start with Steven Strasburg where we won late. For Bobby's pitching, he's going to go as Cole and Syndergaard go. And this week they were okay. And just like Bobby, he had an okay week. But if Syndergaard can remain hot and Cole can just keep doing what he's been doing all season because he's been unreal, he could string together some wins, but it just doesn't seem like these are going to be the type of wins you want to see this late in the season. Even if Ozuna does close out the game, right? He gets a 10-9 win. Does that do much? Not really. Instead of being...
It might, though. It might. When all is said and done, it might. I don't know.
I mean, instead of being a game and a half out, he might be a game or half a game out. At the end of the day, Bobby needs to move. He needs to get out of that 7 spot sometime in the next 4 weeks. And for me, if I'm him, I want out as soon as possible because I've got, 2 guys behind me coming and a guy already in, and I'm only 5 behind him. If Bobby can flip this week and make it a 12-7, right? Make it a 13-7, and get Jason to drop back. If he can get if he can break Mike Sherman's winning streak, if he could get past Ari somehow, one of these teams he needs to get at least 5 out of. And
yeah, I was going to say that it's all going to be like this matchup is so big right now against Jason, just because something like a 13-8 or a 12-7 for Bobby just kind of puts everything else in perspective, because then down goes Jason, up goes Bobby, and then everyone's sort of back in the middle of things again, and then we don't know what's happening with 3 weeks to go.
I do want to point one thing out. Bobby has alternated wins and losses over the last 4 weeks, but it's interesting to see how he won or who he won and who he lost against. And if we go all the way back to week 10, when he defeated Mike Haber 12-8, he hasn't had a win over a team in the hunt since. So he lost to James McCloskey 12-8 in week 11, beat Josh Haber 16-5, lost to Frank 10-9, lost to Jimmy Dunlap 11-8, beat Nick Homan 15-6, lost to you 14-7, beat James Santangelo 13-8, and now just lost to me 10-9.
Yeah, he hasn't won 2 in a row in a long time.
Not only that, he's not beating the teams in the race. He lost to Chris Levy earlier this season. He's beating up on the teams at the bottom when he's supposed to, right? He beat up on Mike Sherman and Ari earlier this season when they were bad. He beat up on Uncle Barry. He beat me 11-10. So He beat
Nick Holman.
He beat you 11-7. He beat me 11-10, and he beat Mike Haber 12-8. Those are his.
The Nick Holman win was good too.
Sure, but Nick's not in the race. I'm literally just talking about teams in the race. Those 9 teams that we're talking about, right? If you look at Bobby's record against those teams, it's not very good.
No.
So.
No, and that's another reason why those teams are better than him, and are higher up in the standings.
Mm-hmm.
So a lot can happen in 4 weeks. Like you and I know that a month is just, because after 4 weeks we're just like, wow, this guy's in first place after the first 4 weeks. And it doesn't mean a whole hell of a lot,
no.
But you can certainly make up ground in 4 weeks if you're a hot team. So I'm just really excited to find out who becomes the hottest team over the last month or 6 weeks. It'll be interesting to see. And I hope that Bobby makes his first playoff appearance. I realize he's a sophomore player. He hasn't been waiting like some of these other teams have for tons of years. But, still, he's working his ass off and really trying to do everything he can to just grab a stat here and there, play his reliever roulette, whatever he has to do to just snag a stat and move on to the next week. And he's doing that. So I give him a lot of credit. He's right where he wants to be. And how about yourself? Like, are you feeling pretty confident now with 4 weeks to go, with your streak on the line, going for 3 championships in a row? You got to be sweating, but you got to be excited as well, Joe.
Benji, I've been saying it all along. I'm going to win my 3rd championship this year. I'm going to crush James Santangelo this week. I'm going to put, Ari and Mike Sherman down in the last 2 weeks, keep them out of the playoffs, and I'm going forward. I'm going to win. I'm telling you right now. There's nothing more to say.
Yeah, I like your confidence, and I have this kind of hunch that whoever you're playing in the playoffs, you got to be favored. Like no matter what the experience now that you have in the playoffs, besides Mike Haber, you have the most. So anyone you're playing, they're kind of tightening their backs in the figurative sense of trying to figure out what kind of strategy you're going to play, how to compete against you, how to outmanage you. There's all these factors, and at the end of the day, you got to beat the champ. You got to beat the man.
To be the man,
I wish you the best of luck, man. But at the same time, I think I speak for the rest of the league that if somehow you miss out, it's not the worst thing in the world for the league either.
But that's not going to happen, so y'all just going to have to deal with me in the playoffs again. Let's move to the next matchup. And, I said just a minute ago that there are 9 teams in the playoff hunt because somebody got spoiled this week. We're going to jump to Ari Nisman taking on Nick Holman, and Nick takes down a 13-6 win. And if I'm honest, it should have been worse than this. But, this 13-6 win, it probably sticks the nail in Ari's coffin here. He's now 5 games under 500 with 4 weeks to play. 14 and a half out of a playoff spot with 4 teams ahead of him. It was a nice run. It was a really strong run. But it's just, I don't think it's going to happen this season for Ari, and I think this does it for him. Close categories this week. Nick wins by a run, a double, a triple, a save, and 2 strikeouts by a pitcher. Ari wins by 1 RBI and 1 inning pitched. They tie in errors and wins. This was incredibly close for what the score was, but at the same time, it was like 15-6 on Saturday and 16-3 on Friday. So Ari made strides to try to mitigate this as well as he could. It was too big a hole to dig himself out of, much like his entire season has been.
And it just seems that we were just kind of wondering when the other shoe was going to fall, and I don't mean that in a sense that Ari's team wasn't capable. It's just that he was in a hole. He went on an explosive run. He was the hottest team in our league for 4 or 5 weeks, whatever it was, and eventually, something is going to give. And at the end of the day, Ari needed to be perfect, and I said this about a month ago. That if it's going to come down to if Ari's going to leave stats on his bench, or if he can be perfect. I always believed in his pitching. I really did. And we knew that, like you said, as the Colorado Rockies go, Ari goes. But it also had to do with his managing. As you said, he lost by 1 run. He lost by 1 double. He tied in errors. He tied in wins. There had to have been the opportunity to grab a double or two. There had to be an opportunity to grab a run or two here. It was there for him, but it's so damn hard to be perfect, Joe, and he kind of needed to be.
Let's highlight Nick's team first since he won the week. He went 10 for 53 on his bench. That's a 189 batting average. 10 runs, 2 doubles, 2 homers, 8 RBIs he could have picked up and gotten the win there. A steal, 6 walks, and 22 strikeouts. The 8 RBIs really hurts when you see him lose by 1. Whether it was Cavan Biggio on Tuesday, 1 for 4 with a homer, a steal, and an RBI on the bench, and Puig's game was postponed, so he could have gotten him into the utility spot. Or Luis Urias on Friday, 2 for 4, 3 runs, an RBI on the bench, and Cavan Biggio going 0 for 3 at second base. That it sucks, and you see him lose that RBI stat. But at the end of the day, he more than doubled up Ari, so he did everything he needed to do this week to play spoiler. He only made 1 move this week. He dropped Adam Wainwright for Cavan Biggio. Thank you very much, Nick. I needed Wainwright this week. Appreciate that. But again, he did everything he needed to do. He did just enough to get the big enough win to pretty much spoil Ari's season. If we jump to Ari's team, however, this is the big thing. 17 for 55 on the bench. That's a 309 batting average. 10 runs, 3 doubles, 3 homers, 9 RBIs, 2 walks, 13 strikeouts, and an error. I mean, his entire team hit 111 on Wednesday. His team didn't come to hit. They only hit 233 with a 303 on base percentage. His team hit 309 on the bench. That's where he loses this season. Whether it was Starlin Castro on Friday going 4 for 4 with a homer and 2 RBIs on the bench. Rougned Odor was 0 for 1 with 4 walks and a strikeout at second base. Okay, maybe you don't want to do that one. Maybe you want the walks, even though he didn't win on base percentage and he didn't win walks. Okay, maybe you move on to somebody else, like Randall Grichuk, who had a homer on his bench, and Calhoun was 0 for 3 in right field. Whether it was Cole Calhoun the next day, 2 for 4 with 3 runs, a walk, and a strikeout on the bench, and Grichuk is 0 for 4 with 3 strikeouts in right field. We talked all season, Ari likes to carry a big bench. This is exactly the problem with doing that. Because you see a guy who went off, oh, Grichuk hit a homer yesterday, so he must be getting hot. So I'll bench Cole Calhoun, and it costs you all of those stats.
That's the classic flip-flop that you don't stick with it the next day. Instead, you make the change, and then it burns you again. That happens to everybody so many times, but it's just so tempting after a guy gets hot to then put him in. But you're absolutely right. We can also argue, that's the getting cute aspect and saying, Grichuk, who's, we know what Randall Grichuk is as a hitter.
Yeah.
So, I mean, you might be going for it, but, is it the Randall Grichuk that hits the home run and then just gets the golden sombrero the next day? Or is it the Randall Grichuk that hits 4 home runs in 6 days? So, tough call, but if it were me, I was surprised. I realized Ari didn't draft either of these guys, but Calhoun has been on his team longer, so I think he'd have more of a commitment to just stick with him. But the flip-flop happened, and it certainly cost him big.
Yeah. And, when we look at this team, top to bottom, again, they only hit 233 on the week. Cole Calhoun hit 083 in his lineup. That 2 for 4 really would have been helpful. Randall Grichuk hit 143 in his lineup. That homer would have been really helpful. You look at guys like Ji-Man Choi and Ian Desmond, who just did not produce. And for Ian Desmond specifically, all of Colorado's games are on the road this week. So you see, again, a case of Well, as the Colorado Rockies go, Ari's team goes. They lost 5 of the 6 games they played this week, and
yeah, wow.
in Houston and in San Diego, you know.
And as a clear result, you know, Ari's team suffered.
Yep.
And it's a bummer to see the run that he's going on basically come to an end, because Ari's offense has brought it this season.
Sure.
For the most part, you cannot argue with 9-8 in runs, 12-6 in doubles, 7-8 in triples, 12-5 in home runs, 10-7 in RBIs, 7-9 in stolen bases. The 5 for 12 in walks you don't like to see, and that's why he's 9-9 in on-base percentage. But 12-6 in strikeouts, 8-7 errors, and 11-7 in batting average. His offense brought it this season, man. Like that.
Yep.
That's a shame. You know, it was a tough week. He was due to run into one. He's had a good season. There's still a very good chance that he can go over 500 this season, as he is only, 4 under?
5. He's sitting at 174, 179. Yeah, he's 5.
So it's there for him to at least have a winning season. Obviously going to be in the consolation bracket. Tough. But at the same time, he's not going to stop playing.
No.
He's got next week.
He's got 4 playoff contending teams in his final 4 weeks. This is a dangerous team to face.
He can just ruin someone's season very easily, and I'm sure he will. I know that I'm one of his favorite opponents to beat. So I don't think I think that for Ari, even a couple of weeks ago, he was saying it might be too little, too late, but you know, it has been a good run for him. So at the same time, I think he had already accepted his fate. So I don't think just because he lost this week, he's all of a sudden going to just, you know, throw in the towel. He's still going to play to win.
Yeah, absolutely. Absolutely. Ari always is a competitor in this league, and he's a dangerous man to see on the schedule this late in the season. And he's on both of our schedules, starting with you this week. So let's jump to key players for both of these guys, starting with Nick. We're going to go with Yasiel Puig, 393 average, 433 on base, 4 runs, 2 doubles, a triple, a homer, 4 RBIs, a walk, and 9 strikeouts. Eddie Rosario, 258 average and on base percentage, 9 runs, 2 doubles, 2 homers, 4 RBIs, and 7 strikeouts. And finally, George Springer, 368 average, 429 on base, 3 runs, 3 doubles, 3 RBIs, 2 walks, and 3 strikeouts. Pitching-wise for Nick, it'll be Ken Giles, who got the only save on his team and the only save of the matchup. So we have to highlight him. It was the only relief appearance he made, and it wasn't pretty. He did give up a homer and 2 runs and a 3 whip with 2 strikeouts, but it won him the category, so he deserves at least that much. Daniel Hudson was much better for him as a reliever. 5 relief appearances, 4 1/3, a walk, 3 strikeouts, a 2.08 ERA, and 0.69 whip. And finally, Jake DeGrom, 12 innings, a win, a homer, 2 walks, 15 strikeouts, a 1.50 ERA, and 0.92 whip. Look, neither one of these guys pitched very well. Both of them were north of 5 on the ERA. And for Nick, it was a 1.61 whip. So finding guys who performed well was a little difficult, but Jake DeGrom certainly carried the load for him.
Right, but I mean, Bieber had a solid start. It looks like Wade Miley had a very solid start. He got solid starts from these guys. It's just that there was also a deplorable showing from some others.
Yeah, absolutely. For Ari, it's going to be Starlin Castro this week. 467 average and on base, 4 runs, 3 doubles, a homer, 6 RBIs, and a strikeout. This is a guy you had on your team a few times, correct, Benny?
Yeah, I know. Believe me, I know.
Yeah. I mean, just a ridiculously hot week. He went 4 for 4 on the 9th and 4 for 5 on the 11th. Just absolutely exploded on Ari's team at the end of the week. Just too deep a hole to dig out of, even with that kind of production. JT Realmuto, 238 average, 370 on base, 4 runs, a double, 2 RBIs, 3 steals out of a catcher this week. Fantastic, and it wins him the category. 5 walks, 4 strikeouts, and an error. And finally, Nolan Arenado, 375 average, 389 on base, 4 runs, 2 homers, 4 RBIs, a walk, 2 strikeouts, and an error. Pitching-wise for Ari, Jeff Samardzija had a great week. 12 innings, a win, a loss, a homer, 3 walks, 8 strikeouts, a 1.50 ERA, and 0.67 WHIP. The good start was at home against Philly on Saturday. 8 innings, the win, 5 strikeouts, a 1.13 ERA, a 0.25 WHIP. Adrian Hauser was a strong stream for him. 6 innings, a win, 10 strikeouts, a homer, a walk, a 1.50 ERA, and 0.67 WHIP. And finally, Walker Buehler, who has been his ace all season, 6 innings, no decision, 8 strikeouts, 3 walks, a 1.17 WHIP. Anything to add in there, Benji?
Well, I mean, I know that Nick has Mike Sherman next week. I'm really curious to see which of these 2 teams stay hot. It's a big week. It's whether Nick is really on top of his team, being a spoiler week to bring down Mike on this run, or does Mike stay hot and all of a sudden Nick goes cold? Because Nick had a really good week. If he carries it, basically this is Nick's last opportunity to spoil. I'm pretty positive through the rest of his schedule he doesn't have anything. Maybe on that last week, but I don't think so.
He gets Mike Sherman. He gets Sherman this week, Barry and Andy the next 2 weeks, and then finishes the season with Chris Levy.
Okay, so Levy then. So it's this week and the final week,
right?
And that's it. So interesting to see what he does against Sherman here. As far as Ari, he can certainly make things more difficult for me to get into that Final Four spot. So we'll see what happens going forward, man. Mm-hmm. It's a real shame to see Ari's season probably at an end, barring an incredible run. I mean, you would have to start dropping 17-2, 17-4 kind of victories over his opponents. So even still, I tip my cap to a great manager, and unfortunately ran into one of the hotter teams in our league right now. Tip your cap to Nick as well. He had a really good managing week.
Yeah, absolutely. These guys are top notch. We're gonna move on